Public Meetings Act, NJSA 1046 at SEC. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by advertising in the Star Ledger, El Nuevo Coquí, Haiti Progress, and Luz Americano newspapers, and by distribution to the administrative offices of Newark Public Schools. A copy of the meeting notice was also forwarded to City Hall for posting. This is a board business meeting for Tuesday night, September 19, 2017.
Flag salute.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bledsoe.
Present.
Ms. Carter.
present.
Ms. Fonseca. Ms. Gaddy.
Present.
Ms. Gaddy present via teleconference. Ms. Garcia.
Present.
Ms. Johnson. Ms. Owens.
Present.
Mr. Padilla.
Present.
Chair Lewis.
Present.
Quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
Now we'll have our committee reports. We're going to start off with operations. Vice Chair Pta Pto.
Good evening, everyone. Superintendent Cerf, Valerie Wilson, the assistant superintendents in the room, my colleagues, board members, and I welcome the committees, the public, and the students. The first order of business that I want to put forward is to all my board members is that you have a packet that looks like this with last month's committee report minutes are in there and everything that was distributed at my committee meeting last week on Wednesday. Okay? Minutes for my meeting are as follows. Attendees, Board Member Gaddy, Board Member Bledsoe, Chair Lewis, Valerie Wilson, School Administrator, Shantae, Director and Assistant of Design for Public Schools, Quadiro Duke Sproul, Mr. Eric Ingold, William Polk, Interim Director Paul Ingold, and Maurice Morris from Facilities, and Vincent Hutchinson. Meeting was called to order at 5:15. The first order of business, which I want to report out, was Mr. Ingold. He gave a handout and a review of the 2017 Electronic Violence, Vandalism, Substance Abuse Report, which is tackled through the state reporting system, and it was reported as revised. A vast majority of outside weapons are being recovered at the school check-ins. Ms. Gaddy requested that a standard number, what specific weapons were included in this year's data, what percentage of violence was reported towards the teachers and the staff. Ms. Wilson suggested that the district can provide this information. However, it should be understood that reporting may not be 100% accurate, as all incidences are not always reported, and the district data depends on the actual reporting process of incidents. Mr. Ingold suggests that in review of the state's SSD's report for the next operations meeting for information on the new reporting requirements, as perhaps extract data from this source to better answer questions presented to these proceedings. The following items were concerned: 13th Avenue, the third grader. Teacher called that there was a child left there, 4 p.m. There was no one at the school that came to the child. Parent reported that the Bel Air bus company, because the child had not taken and been picked up by Ms. Gaddy. The function of security cameras district-wide by Ms. Gaddy. The availability of security staff, training, operating of security staff related to these issues, brought up by Ms. Gaddy. The principal's roles in interviewing security staff, that was brought up by Mr. Bledsoe. Request for information from Substantial Schools, New Jersey, that came from Ms. Gaddy. Request was also made knowing what building issues exist at the schools ahead of time, so board members are better aware of the problems before visiting the site. Okay, so everything else with regards to training is on that report. There's also an issue that was brought up with goalposts at a soccer field at Central High School, which was addressed. The Clear Crystal project was updated, and I report out at last month's meeting. 47 schools were shut down because of lead issues, And as of today, 46 of those schools are back online. Okay? Then we had approval of the minutes, the transportation issues. Ms. Spruce presented a quick snapshot of the school year transportation efforts. The handouts and the new issues were provided to board members to reference with Ms. Spruce and gave an interview and responded to the committee questions. The handout is attached. Okay, there was also an incident that was reported with vandalisms at the locker rooms at Weekway High School and Westside High School. Evidently, our students, they don't take losing too well, so they kind of beat up the locker rooms. So, then we adjourned the meeting at 7:59. But there's also one incident that I'd like to bring to light, which has been a very hot topic in the community. There was an incident at University High pertaining to a weapon. I was notified of this incident by another board member. I immediately called the district, and I spoke to Mr. Eric Ingold, who, Eric, where are you? He's here. I would like Eric to address this issue now because he is the one that's better prepared to answer any questions with regards to this. Eric?
All right, yeah, there was, on Friday, there was a student that was found to be in possession of a handgun inside University High School. The information came to us because that student posted a photo of himself with a firearm in the bathroom, and it was brought to the attention of security staff. The principal acted quickly, put the building into lockdown. NPD came, and they did locate a firearm, and the student was arrested. So we do have metal detecting at the location. We have metal detectors. We have bag checks. We have protocols in place. So we're reviewing and evaluating all the procedures that we currently have at the location to determine the best probable reason and manner in which that firearm made it into our school. So it's considered an ongoing investigation. We have literally hundreds of hours of footage to review, manually and painstakingly reviewing them to determine how, in fact, that firearm came into the building. Nothing's off the table relative to that investigation, and every option is going to be looked into. We're working closely with the Newark Police Department to ensure that that we get to the bottom of it and determine how this occurred, and to prevent it, obviously, from ever occurring again in that school or any other school.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to accept the report?
Motion.
Let's, who's second? Mr. Johnson. Motion to accept the September 13, 2017 Operations Committee report as given by Vice Chair Padilla, moved by Bledsoe, second by Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next, we'll have our personnel report by Board Member Carter.
Good morning, community. Personnel met on, good afternoon, I'm sorry. Personnel met on Thursday, this past Thursday. The meeting was called to order at 5:01. Those in attendance were myself, Kim Gaddy, Josephine Garcia. District staff was Larissa, Andrea, Herb Daughtry, Janelle, Nafisa, and Ziomara. The previous topics we discussed from previously was the personnel transition plan. The district provided a final draft of a memo to go to the state that would see voting rights for negotiations and hiring for review by the committee. Board members discussed the approach for adding negotiations to the personnel committee structure moving forward and agreed on this approach. Board members in the district also discussed the new process for central office hires. The memo was updated by the district and submitted to the state on Monday, September 18th. The board now officially will be approving negotiations and all central office hires moving forward. Next month, school administrators will be added, following by teachers in the next months. The next step in this transition is a training for board members on September the 23rd about compensation and benefits that will be provided by the NJSBA and our health benefits broker of record. Instructional vacancies for the 2017-18 school year. The committee reviewed the current instructional vacancies for this year. At the time of the committee meeting, there were 34 direct instructional vacancies across schools, with an additional 16 non-instructional vacancies for a total of 50. The board reviewed an itemized list of vacancies and long-term instructional leaves. The board requested the number of teachers who were placed at schools and after the transfer period had closed, which will be provided by the district. So I know you all want the numbers, so here they are. So for the vacancies, there's one vacancy for the Center of Direct Early Childhood. There's one for teacher of art education, 7 teacher bilingual education, 3 chemistry teachers, 3 teachers of the deaf, 4 elementary teachers, 4 English teachers, 3 teachers for English second language, 5 mathematics, 1 physics teacher, 2 science, 1 Spanish, 6 special education, 5 teacher coaches, and 3 vice principals. Those schools that are affected, there's a VP for elementary at the Early Childhood Center Annex, a VP position at Avon, McKinley, and Wilson, a teacher of the art at Louise Marin. Bilingual teachers are needed at the following schools: Ann Street, 3 at Barringer Steam, 1 at Elliott Street, and 1 at Louise Marin, and 1 at Roberto Clemente. For chemistry, it's American History, Barringer Academy STEAM, and Technology. Teacher of the deaf is at Bruce Street, 2 at Bruce Street, and 1 at Technology, but that's being covered by using a 6-period option. Hawkins Street has a teacher for elementary, as well as McKinley and North 10th Street. English teacher is needed at Malcolm X Shabazz in North Vocational. Teacher of English second language is at Ivy Hill. Teacher English second language is at William H. Horton, 2 spots at William H. Horton. Teacher for kindergarten is at Franklin. Mathematics teachers are needed at Arts High, 2 at Eastside, 1 at Malcolm X Shabazz, 1 at Quitman. Physical education teacher is needed at American History. Teacher for the physics is needed at Arts High. Science teacher needed at Barringer Arts and Humanities and at Eastside. Spanish teacher needed at Bard High School. Special education teachers are needed at Barringer and Louise Marin, as well as 2 at Louise Marin and 2 at McKinley. Newark Leadership Academy and Newark Vocational and Weekway. Teacher coaches are needed at E. Elmer Flagg, Hawthorne Avenue, Malcolm X Shabazz, Park Elementary, and 13th Ave. Just for the record, majority of these vacancies became open as of August the 28th. We also spoke about the strategic plan update. The district provided a written update on the progress for each key milestone related to talent 1 week prior to the meeting. There were no questions on that document. We then spoke about the hiring process. The district outlined the current process for hiring managers around central office staffing, and provided an update operating procedure document to show how we will be introducing an even more systematic approach. The district has agreed to provide the board with a job description, the selected candidate's resume, the hiring manager's justification for the hire, and the scoring information on the selection criteria specifically for the selected candidate. The board has agreed to revisit the approach later on to determine if this level of information is needed in approximately 6 months, but we as a board feel like that was needed so that we can do our due diligence to make sure that the proper people are being hired in the district until the trust is built. Candidates for hiring approval. While the board has not technically received voting authority at the point of the meeting, given the high-level nature of this candidate, the board reviewed and selected a candidate for the Assistant Superintendent of High Schools to replace Deputy Superintendent Robert Gregory in his former position as the Assistant Superintendent. The committee recommended that the selected candidate, Angelica Allen McMillan, be approved for hire by the full board. We'll speak about that later. Lastly, the resolutions appointing authority. As a part of the transition to personnel matters, the board must appoint an appointing authority within the district to effectuate all civil service hires and civil service personnel actions. The resolution requested that the board appoint the chief talent officer as the appointing authority. The committee recommended a yes vote to that resolution. And there was also an update on negotiations. We updated negotiations on CASA, 617, Local 3, and NTA, which are all currently in progress between the district and the staff union leadership. Are there any questions? No. You gotta wait till later.
Any board members with a question? I know somebody had something. I heard a wow.
Wait. Did somebody motion?
Any motion?
Motion.
Second.
I think I had Garcia and Padilla, right?
Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry, Johnson on the second? This is a motion to accept the September 14, 2017 Personnel Committee reports, led by Board Member Carter, moved by Ms. Garcia, second by Ms. Johnson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstain?
Nay. Nay.
Abstain?
Yeah. No.
Is it no?
No.
Okay. And motion carries 8-1. Report accepted. Next.
Next program instruction by Board Member Owens.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Okay. Thank you. Just gotta check. Let me first say how excited I am to have all of these reports in front of me, and I don't feel lonely anymore. Progress. Okay, program and instruction. We met last week, Tuesday the 12th, from 5:35 to 8:41. All of the committee members were in attendance, myself, Reginald Bledsoe, Dashe Carter, and Marquise Akil Lewis. Administrators attending were Brad Haggerty, Dr. Yolanda Mendez, Carolyn Granado, Robert Gregory, Maritza Castillo, Sherelle Spriggs, Valerie Wilson, Nancy Deering, and Erskine Glover. The agenda items discussed. The main topics were PQS and RFP processes overview, summer school participation and academic outcomes, the 2016-17 park data, including classroom level improvement planning, Dr. George Washington Carver Elementary School / Bruce Street School for the Deaf, in particular application of park data and planning to George Washington Carver, and implications of the George Washington Carver Sikh Academy lease on academic programs at Carver and Bruce Street. There were 11 resolutions brought on the agenda that made it to the electronic school board. One board resolution supporting school safety and educational opportunity for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning students. 4, under finance and operations, the request to transfer preschool education aid carryover funds for early childhood expansion, provider contract payment balance, and provide students with individualized education programs. A corrective action plan, community-based preschool provider, Clinton Hill Community and Early Childhood Center. Application for the appropriation of the additional state aid funding of $6.7 million for the 17-18 school year, and resolution to accept the Hartford grant. There were 4 resolutions under purchasing, cleaning, and reconditioning of athletics, band, clothing, and equipment contract, web-based special education software request for proposal renewal, pre-qualification solicitation for testing, assessments, and training, and medical consultant professional services. Under program instruction, there are 2 resolutions, the harassment, intimidation, and bullying resolution, and grading policy resolution, intention to assess current policies and propose changes by May 2018. Smaller topics included field trips, introduction to Cornerstones Initiative in high school humanities courses, the Southward Community Schools Initiative monthly report, September enrollment and class size for Behringer Arts, Behringer STEAM, Central, Eastside, Shabazz, Weequahic, and Westside campus, the testing calendar, the data calendar, and the Principal Leadership Institute schedule. Important points of information. PQS and RFP processes overview. The committee received training on how Newark Public Schools uses an electronic purchasing system to acquire goods and services. Purchases of $40,000 or more require bidding and/or the school board resolution action before services can begin. This process can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. The pre-qualification solicitation PQS process allows the district to examine and select an approved group of vendors to provide services throughout the district. It does not guarantee services. A request for proposal, RFP, is a method of securing proposals for services that are primarily professional in nature and for services that require tailored specification. Summer school participation and academic outcomes. 3 documents relating to summer school were presented to the committee. The first was a report on high school summer school outcomes that included participation attendance, credit accumulation, and summer graduates. 1,455 students participated, of which 1,260 or 87% were NPS students. For NPS students, there was a pass rate of 84.5%. Students with good attendance, equated to being present 95% or more of the time, was low for all grades. 9th was 35%, 10th grade was at 38%, 11th 36%, and 12th at 54% for good attendance. Out of 105 seniors, summer school produced 56 NPS graduates. This will increase the overall graduation rate approximately 2 percentage points. Graduation rates will be finalized in early October. A second report was an initial draft of a report to be compiled in the coming months and presented to P&I in November or December. This report would include specifics on the purpose, size, and programs within summer school, as well as a deep analysis of the achievement of students who attend summer school and the teachers who work summer school. The third report was a deeper look at achievement in the 2nd grade pilot, which showed pre- and post data on sound acquisition by participating students. 16-17 park data. A presentation on park achievement included specific data points and analyses such as increase in student participation on park, overall improvement of ELA of 2.7% and math of 2.8% compared to 15-16 school year, with a larger increase in grades 3 through 8 than in high schools grades 9 through 11. Increases in 8-9 grades in both ELA and math. Comparisons to the state of New Jersey, where NPS outgrew the state in both ELA and math. Explanation of definition of a cohort and data showing cohorts improving the more time they spend in NPS. School-wide achievement showing both proficiency and growth measures and changes in student performance level by grade level course. And of course, we'll hear later about some more about PARC. Classroom level improvement planning. The data is used for the primary and essential work of building the capacity of the adults who teach our students. During August training planning sessions, school level data was used to strategically schedule teachers, such as assigning strongest teachers to teach foundational courses, to consider and plan for the development of different groups of teachers, to plan for instruction of specific students, especially the planning of interventions, and finally to detail ahead of time how the school will know if their plan is working. Dr. George Washington Carver Elementary School, Bruce Street School for the Deaf. Application of park data and planning to Carver. Overall, students meeting and exceeding expectations, levels 4 and 5, increased 7.28 percentage points in ELA and increased 2.72 percentage points in math. In the individual tested grade levels, every grade saw increases in ELA passing scores except 4th and 5th, which were down slightly, 1.28 and 1.27 percentage points respectively. In math, every grade saw increases in passing scores except 5th, which declined by 7.05 percentage points. There were large gains in grades 7 and 8 in ELA, 22.84 percentage points in 7th grade, and 11.54 percentage points in 8th. Carver's current principal took leadership of the school in early November 2016, making the gains achieved more impressive. Inconsistency of instruction in grades 4 and 5 were factors contributing to dips in those grades, but stronger teachers are scheduled with those grades this year. There are some very strong teachers at Carver, and those teachers stayed at Carver for the 17-18 school year, which is a positive indicator of future improvement. Implications of the Carver Seek lease on academic programs. Class sections at Bruce Street range from 7 to 14 students, with students at various times pulled into breakout spaces for extra assistance, which often means class sizes are 6 to 8 students. As a result of greater efficiency and use of a resource room, Bruce Street will only experience one less classroom in 17-18 rather than 2. Many therapeutic learning activities are available at Carver as part of the regular school day. They include yoga, drama, mindfulness, culinary arts, chess, African drumming, Tai Chi meditation, and restorative practices. Future growth goals for Carver include creating a pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 program, expanding the instructional program, expanding the sports program, and expanding the extracurricular program with an emphasis on rebranding Carver as a school of choice for families. Future growth goals for Bruce Street include possible relocation to Elliott Street School, which has the kind of facilities needed and the available space so that the auditorily impaired AI program can be expanded to include students who are also visually impaired. Over the last year, district administrators have been in discussion with a high-profile professor at the College of New Jersey who wants to work with NPS free of charge to build this new state-of-the-art program. Students from other districts would be able to enroll in NPS paying tuition for this program. There is also potential positive impact on families who are likely to participate at higher levels in the American Sign Language classes based on closer location to their home. Over 60% of current Bruce Street students live in the North or the Central wards. The residence of most of the students also would lend the ease of transition to high school, as most enroll in the AI program at Technology High School. Introduction to Cornerstones Initiative in High School Humanities courses. Cornerstones is a series of 3 to 10 engaging, culturally relevant lessons aligned to a collection in ELA classrooms or a historical time period in social studies classrooms. All lesson ideas came from NPS teachers, and all teachers received professional development and supporting materials from central office. At each grade level, students engage in a cornerstone in both their ELA and social studies courses. For example, in the 9th grade, the cornerstones are a closer look at gentrification in English 1 and who are the hidden victims of industrialization and mechanization in world history. Southward Community Schools Initiative. For the past month, all schools have focused on facility and staff preparedness in anticipation for the new academic year. With 2 new principals, the creation of one school by the merger of Louise A. Spencer and Miller Street School, coupled with the additional support and deliverables as a result of the community schools and SIG funding, August provided a much-needed opportunity to develop a framework to further unite the community schools with a focus on climate and culture, to collectively plan and to coordinate the various pieces of the initiative into a cohesive whole. Some specific actions taken include that the community school directors are assessing last year's efforts, engaging the school-based leadership team, and creating school engagement calendars. At the 4 elementary schools, the entire school staff was trained on trauma-informed care and the effects of adverse childhood experiences on the students. The same will occur for the non-instructional staff at the high school. The teachers and school leaders have been trained already. The intent is to create a more welcoming, supportive, and responsive environment conducive to high academic standards and parent and community involvement. For example, each school will provide individual, family, and group counseling. The committee received a list of the members of each school's site-based leadership team along with meeting times. September enrollment and class size for Barringer Arts, Barringer STEAM, Central, Eastside, Shabazz, Weequahic, and Westside. For each of these high schools, actual attendance as of September 11th was lower than the number of students enrolled in Power School. On the low end, Westside has had 61% of its enrolled students attend. On the high end, Eastside has had 91% of its enrolled students attend. For each of these high schools, there are more students enrolled in Power School than were budgeted for last spring. For example, Weequahic has 351 students enrolled in Power School, but was only budgeted for 236 students. That is 115 extra students, 49% more than projected to attend. Barringer STEAM has 12% more, Barringer Arts has 28% more, Central has 14% more, Eastside has 6% more, Shabazz has 17% more students, and Westside has 12% more students. Conclusions reached. Under the leadership of Principal Thomas and Assistant Superintendent Mendez, the students of George Washington Carver are displaying improved academic and social outcomes. Executing a long-term lease with KIPP Sikh Academy will effectively limit the district's ability to grow the enrollment of George Washington Carver, which would be a goal of the district as we transform into a top choice school. There are no ongoing issues. Special edition. On Monday, September 25th at 10 a.m. at Arts High School, The Newark Public Schools, in conjunction with the City of Newark, will honor Raphael Ragor Gordon at Arts High School with a proclamation and proclaim that day as Ragor Day in the City of Newark, New Jersey. This event will be in celebration of his work around the world and upcoming lecture at Carnegie Hall. Raphael Gordon has come a long way from his hardships of being homeless in the streets of Newark, New Jersey. While attending a number of elementary schools in Newark, he graduated from Arts High School in 2001, earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Montclair State University, and completed additional coursework at Harvard University. Now he is an international award-winning entrepreneur and recognized as one of the top international speakers and advisors for world leaders and global entrepreneurs who are impacting humanity. During the Skyscraper World Tour, Raphael Ragor Gordon will lecture to a full house of luminaries, entrepreneurs, global leaders, and creatives from around the world at Carnegie Hall and Wheel Recital Hall Theater. This lecture will take place on Wednesday, September 27th at 7:30 p.m. Last, on October 24th, the movie of his life will premiere in New York City, and the City of Newark will also premiere this film earlier next month. Last recommendations, it is the committee's recommendation that the lease between the district and KIPP Sikh Academy be limited to 3 years. It is the committee's recommendation that the Newark Board of Education vote yes to all resolutions presented to the Program Instruction Committee that are up for vote this month.
Any questions? Any board members have questions? I just before we move forward, I just wanted to urge board members to attend on Monday the celebration for Raphael Gordon, who is a good friend of mine and a fellow Jaguar, who's been doing amazing things around the world. And I think that we need to do more of this, give people their flowers while they can smell them when they're representing our city, especially traveling around the world, showing what Newark is made of. So on next Monday, I'm just asking my board members to please help and attend this event. On Wednesday, I'm asking board members who are going to still be here, who's not going to the conference, to attend the event on Wednesday night. I know that Vice Chair Padilla and Board Member Kim Gaddy will be at the county board meeting accepting award on behalf of the board. The board have been named a master board, so they will be accepting that award on our behalf on that night. So I will ask any other board members, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Fonseca, any one of you are pleased to just go and represent the board at that event that night as well,
Mr.
right?
Chairman.
Mr.
So,
Bledsoe.
before we approve this, I just would like to thank Brad Haggerty and Dr. Sunrise Smith for the rollout of one of the resolutions that's presented to this board, dealing with the LGBTQ community. So I'd like to thank them for their support, and also the legal department for helping to roll out this necessary but critical issue. Thank you.
And can we get a motion?
I think Ms. Carter moved. Is there a second? Johnson? This motion to accept the September 14, 2017 P&I Committee report as delivered by Board Member Owens, moved by Ms. Carter, second by Ms. Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next report is our Governance Committee report by Vice Chair Padilla.
Okay, good evening, everyone, again. Okay, so the Governance Committee was formed about a few weeks back. We've met twice. The first time that we met, we were kind of laying the groundwork for what we wanted to do with this particular committee, board members that were involved. So it's really taking a really good course. I'll report out. All board members are very inclusive, very talkative on the points. They're also very much included on all the discussion all the way around. So board members on this committee are Crystal Fonseca, Leah Owens. NPS liaison is Ms. Valerie Wilson. NPS staff is Nancy Deering. From the superintendent's office, Mr. Robert Gregory, and from legal, Ms. Pamela Duke was in attendance. Oh, and Dashay Carter, correct. Why isn't that on here? Sorry, Dashay. Pamela Luke. From the Panasonic Corporation, Mr. Larry Leverett and Mr. George Perry. Oh, that's why. She was not present at the last meeting. That's why. But I got that here. Well, every time we have these meetings, we had an icebreaker. And in this particular meeting, we were asking board members what they do in their personal lives that ultimately helps advocate the work of the board. So each board member came up with a very, very positive answer that was kind of like out of left field, that you would not even think that this is what they're doing on this with the board. The subcommittee updates the board handbook. I will report that Ms. Owens facilitated the discussion. She did a magnificent job with this. Leah has really taken a deep dive into this handbook and this operations manual for the board members. She's very factual with her findings, and she just does an overall great job with this. So I want to say thank you, Leah, for that. So the committee reviews and discussed the revised table of contents from the operating manual and provided feedback. It was agreed that the work product will be called the Board Handbook and include such topics as board history, vision, mission, operating manual, operation norms, in addition to other specific topics like communications, ethics, professional development, student representatives, etc. The handbook will be completed over the course of time, and it will be reviewed annually. The following timeline was discussed and agreed to. September 15th, a conference call to discuss the first draft to be discussed. September 19th, we report out at the business meeting, which we're doing now, which establishes 2 target dates. One, September 21st, a draft email to board members to review in preparation to be discussed at our retreat at September 23rd. The retreat will include specific feedback on the handbook, identify critical components for the upcoming composition, along with the timeline, and we're looking to adopt this on November 30th. Roles and responsibilities. Ms. Luke reviewed the documents and outlined some specific key roles, responsibilities of the board, and target dates. The components will be incorporated into the work plan. Board development, it was referred to next week. Board of Education work plan, it was deferred until our next meeting. Now, we touched upon, this topic has been brought upon numerous times at various meetings, but the audit is being discussed at this committee. All board members are having a different view as to what should be done. It was suggested also, too, that Ms. Owens took the lead on this, and she really wanted to take a real deep dive into this audit. Leah feels, and a lot of the board members feel, that this is something that really needs to be done in depth. Okay? So it would be established as a baseline to help the board get an understanding of the pulse and the successes of potential gaps. The committee discussed several approaches and viable business partners, included with the Council of the Great City Schools, PDK, etc., who would assist in accomplishing this work. Funding for the audit was also discussed. It was determined that in doing it right, a December timeline was recommended, was not realistic at the time. So the next step, we're going to identify who, when, what for a target composition. Transition plan, the need to be proactive is essential. The survey would be created by board members and would be asked to be reviewed as a pathway to local control report and identify the things that would like to see and identify things that we would like to see implemented. We would like to identify who, what, when, and when a target date for this completion. So our next steps, we meet again in October. and we'll finalize what we're going to do with this. But again, in this committee, there's the entire district is included in this. As you see, the legal department is included in this. Different aspects of different committees are involved in this. Superintendent's office is involved in this, and the BA is involved in this. Thank you very much. That is the conclusion of my report.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Owens?
thank you. For the item of the transition plan, being that I suggested that we look at the NESB report, Pathway to Local Control, is that on the agenda for the
Yes.
retreat?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Well, I believe that an agenda did go out. What's Nancy? I believe that agenda goes out tomorrow.
Okay,
We did discuss Wednesday, right after this meeting.
okay.
But it'll be on there. It should be
Yeah,
on
so
there, yes.
but that is what we're gonna.
Yes,
do
it'll be
for
on
the
there.
Retreat, thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Carter?
Carter Garcia.
Carter Garcia. Motion to accept the Governance Committee report as delivered by Vice Chair Padilla, moved by Ms. Carter, second by Ms. Garcia. All in favor? Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Next report is our community engagement report by Board Member Carter.
Good evening. The community engagement meeting met on the 11th. The meeting was called to order at 5:33. Those members present were myself, Josephine Garcia, and Crystal Fonseca. From the district, it was Margarita, Munez, Paul, Tracy, Ruth, and Felicia. The items we spoke about were there was a welcome. Margarita opened the meeting and welcomed all members, introduced Felicia, who is the coordinator of OFACE, and discussed her role in supporting the committee. Minutes from the August 10th meeting were approved. The second agenda item was the community engagement specialist. An update list of community engagement specialists were reviewed and discussed. Conversations was had about University High School, who currently does not have a community engagement specialist, nor do they have an active community engagement body. And so during that meeting, I asked for us to have a conversation with the Deputy Superintendent Gregory. We'll also be talking to Senior Manager Dan Denos to further discuss how we can support them around this matter. Because it's important that I feel that every school needs to have a community engagement specialist, as well as have engaged parents that helps move the learning in the building. The third agenda item was the Principal Leadership Institute presentation. Margarita reviewed the PowerPoint presentation shared with the principals at the PLI and with the CESs at our August professional development. She highlighted the main focus areas such as the intention of the dual capacity framework and how it can best support principals around this work, creating a welcoming school, and the role and the responsibilities of the CES in this process. Paul reiterated that the framework was presented to principals as a compass and not as an evaluative tool for now. With regards to creating a welcome environment, Board Member Fonseca said that some schools needed help with basic hospitality. Board Member Garcia asked if the security guards can be provided hospitality training, and what is the FACE office's involvement in that. We then spoke about school events and communication. Tracy provided us a brief presentation on the principals at the PLI. She also provided an update of the upcoming events and highlights that will be happening at our schools. She also informed the committee that she shared a list of sports events with Nancy. So Nancy should be updating all board members' calendars so we can know what's going on. Board Member Carter, I pointed out that there needs to be a centralized schedule calendar for all events at all schools. We discussed some short-term and long-term goals and the process that can be put in place so that can happen. We also spoke about a follow-up meeting with board relations to work more closely on this matter. The issue was that as board members, we try to be in multiple places and we don't have a centralized place. And so if that's how we feel as board members, we can imagine how parents feel who have multiple children in different schools. So we want them to be able to go to one centralized place and be able to see what's going on district-wide. So if they have a child that's in high school, they can know if they need to go to this event versus a child who is in middle school, and they can plan accordingly. There's also a list presented with some key dates and events at the front table. Some of the events coming up is our next board meeting is at University High School at 6 p.m. There's an early dismissal for students only at 1 p.m. on the 27th of this month. On the 28th, there's a Believe in Healthy Nork at NJIT Campus Center from 8 to 3. On the 30th, there's a FAFSA Fall Kickoff 2017 at NJIT Campus Center from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And on the 30th, there's a Historically Black College and University Fair at Irvington High School at 10 a.m. We then spoke about strategic plan updates. Paul and Margarita review milestones that are on track and some that may require further development, which were classified as being mixed. Paul highlighted that some of the accomplishments on the communication side are the development of an NPS app, major changes to the website, as well as major changes to the website. Margarita also shared some highlights as around the PTA and PTO inventory, the CES role and responsibility, and an increased opportunity for engagement. Overall, committees agreed that the milestones around expand and better utilize partnership need to be further developed. And we're also going to look at what our next steps can be on those that were classified as being mixed within the strategic plan, not fully developed milestones, and look at some of those areas that some may have deemed as unrealistic, where some of us believe we just need to work a little harder on those to make sure we reach them. The next agenda item was the PTA PTO update. There was no update because the school, it'll be presented to us at the October meeting because school just started, and so they're forming their parent organizations now. We then spoke about the district parent involvement policy. Margarita updated the committee on the status of our district parent involvement policy. She shared that we're working closely with NJSBA to make the adjustments necessary with the changes in ESA. We will share a final draft for feedback and discussion. Committee was provided with a copy of an old draft of the NPS parental involvement policy for review, which we would discuss at our next meeting. We then spoke about the Parent Advisory Council for a conversation with the board president, Marquise Lewis. I asked that we share responsibility and support the work around the reestablishment of the Parent Advisory Council. So Margarita briefed the committee on the initial planning meeting held and provided minutes from that meeting. The committee members received a copy of an old draft of the Parent Advisory Council, School Leadership Council, and Parental and Community Involvement Policy Statement for review. The next steps are that the committee will come together for a working session to review all policies around the Parent Advisory Council. The next item was the budget building. Board Member Carter asked for ideas as to how we can fund and support the activities at our meetings for the community engagement meetings to best engage our parents. Margarita suggested a parent trip to visit Boston Public Schools Parent Academy. The committee liked that idea. Myself and Board Member Fonseca will work on a proposal to submit to the BA, asking for funds to support this work. Partnerships, the next topic was partnerships with the Ward Council. I asked that the council members support the events and partner with us as a district for outreach. And so I don't feel like we should be doing any work by ourselves. I don't think that the mayor's office should be doing anything around education without including us. None of the other organizations should be doing anything. So I think that we should all be collaborating together. So Board Member Garcia will help us to follow up with the council members so that we can go to them and ask them for support. So if we're in their ward as a district, we can begin to get more parents who normally don't come out to come to our meetings if we all work together, the mayor's office, the council office, the district, as well as the community organizations. The next item was the process to request proclamations and recognitions. Paul will follow up with assistant superintendents to brainstorm on what is the best ways to capture this information from schools and create a process. We want to make sure every meeting we're able to recognize the great work that's being done in our district and let our staff members know that we appreciate them as well as our students. We don't want to just recognize our athletes, but we want to recognize our students who are doing great academic work that many times go unnoticed. So we just want to have a formal process, and we're asking that to come through our assistant superintendents. Lastly, we discussed the details of our upcoming Parents as Partners Institute. The next steps for the committee are committee members will review all policies provided prior to the working session. Ruth will forward our back-to-school dates so that committee members as well as all board members will know when the back-to-school events are. And we would discuss the strategic plan, and our meeting was adjourned at 7:27. Are there any questions for me?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Owens?
Thank you. Two items. First, on the Parent Advisory Council, and I know Board Member Carter, you asked me if I had any thoughts to send you an email, and I did, but I just want to reiterate some of them here. I think it's great that the committee is going to review older policies for other organizations that had to do with parents, but I think what's really important is that it's not necessarily something that's advisory. I think we need to create something or recreate it or whatever where the parents actually have power in the decision-making that's going on in that school building. So when I was a teacher at Barringer High School, I was a part of the school leadership council, and not that everything was working perfectly, especially because at that point in time it was on its way out, but there were school leadership councils at different schools that actually function the way that they were written via the Abbott regulations. So I think that's important, and we just need to be careful, and especially with us transitioning to local control, I'm really tired of the word advisory, quite frankly. I don't really want to see it again. So I just hope that we're able to push something where the parents and the community members at each school has power to make decisions for that school. Second, I don't know, I asked this last month at the business meeting, I don't even know if it falls under community engagement, but Transparency Committee. I'm not hearing anything about it. I know, Chair Lewis, that you confirmed that you received my email where I asked lots of questions, who's a part of the committee to form the Transparency Committee, the minutes, what meetings have happened. I received an email from a parent who I personally suggested should fill it out to say, and he got back to me, he said, Ms. Owens, no one even confirmed they received my application. I never got an interview, much like at least one or two other community members said the same thing. So I'm highly concerned because, again, that we are in September. We formed that Transparency Committee as basically conceding because we were trying to get rid of universal enrollment, and we said that we will sit at the table and have a conversation. That's fine. We all agree. I think it was even a unanimous vote after we had discussion. Here we are, September 2017. Transparency Committee hasn't even been created. Never mind create any suggestions about how enrollment should look going into the future. And now we're at a point where we're not even going to be able to change anything because then the response is going to be, well, it's too late in the school year to make changes, like they said a year ago, to actually make changes to enrollment. So if you don't sense it, I'm frustrated around this because, again, this is another opportunity for parents of our district to actually say what the district should look like moving forward. I'm all about creating those types of opportunities. So I don't know if you have any particular thing to say in response, Chair Lewis, or if that information I requested is on its way, but I would appreciate it as soon as possible, an update on the Transparency Committee. Thank you.
Leah, on the first part, I definitely did read your email to the committee, and I share in your sentiments with that. So we're moving forward. This was just the first time. This wasn't under the committee previously. This was something that the board chair brought up and brought to us at our last retreat, and I just felt like as a committee we could better hone in on what needed to be done as a body. So we're looking at that. We're just reading old stuff to see what happened to make sure that we, move forward in the best way possible. In terms of the Transparency Committee, I'll let you take that one.
Deshaun in the room? Hold on, Miss Cole, calm down. Thank you. So, Miss Owens, I did respond back to your email, and I did respond that I got your email, and I was hoping that by me responding back, someone else will jump in and respond to your questions.
I'll answer it.
So let me just tell you what happened with the. So we interviewed. We came down to 6 candidates. We interviewed them to try to come up with 3 parents. we felt as though that those 6 wasn't what we were looking for. So we then reopened the process. We allowed people to apply. Those for 2 weeks, I believe it was. 2 weeks. And only 1 new person or 2 new people applied. Then Deshaun, myself, Ms. Carter sat down and decided that it wasn't working. We was told then that also the parent the parent specialist was also involved with trying to get people to apply. It did not work. We were then asked to identify some people that we feel as though should be interviewed or should be considered for those positions. Ms. Carter identified some folks. I know Mr. Wright identified some folks. And that was where we was as of 2 weeks ago.
So to help him with that, some of the issues were during the first group of, I don't know how the selection process is. I've said before, I wasn't a part of the initial, but when I was a part of the interview and we had, out of the candidates that were presented to me, I don't know how we got to that point, but there were about 2 or 3 candidates who didn't show up on time or rescheduled. There were candidates who didn't really understand what we were trying to do as a district, and were speaking about things as door knocking, like they were just completely off of what we were trying to do as a transparency committee. There are some rules put into place as in terms of who can be on this transparency committee. You can't be an employee of the district. So there were some parents, there was a parent who we were comfortable with, but she happened to be an employee of the district. So we weren't able to, that was, I believe, out of the people I interviewed, the only person that we felt comfortable with. Then there was later some discussion and some disagreement and amongst the 3 of us about what the composition should be. I thought that, I understand that a parent voice is necessary, but I also felt that a community voice was necessary, and that we have a lot of people in the community who fight on behalf of our students who don't have children in the schools. And so one of the debates was whether or not we can find a spot for that person on the committee with the composition. When that composition was made, it was made under the previous board president, Tony Baskerville. So there's a person up there who wasn't able to keep that commitment any longer. And so there was conversation as to whether or not we would be able to put a community person and who that community person would be, in terms of someone that we all agreed on. And that's where the issue became for all 3 of us to agree on a common person. So as he said, we each gave names of parents. And I also reached out to board member Padilla to make sure that we had everybody represented. So I called him and asked him if he can get me some parents, because the parents we had submitted wasn't representative of the North or East Ward. And I wanted to make sure that all demographics were included.
And let me also add to what Ms. Carter started to say. This process, I was not involved in the beginning of this process. This process was before I became president, and I just took on the mantle, and things was already set in place. So I tried to do what I could do with, what I was handed.
Thank you, both Mr. Chair and Board Member Carter. But I do want to reiterate my request, and I would like to be able to get them as soon as possible, considering I sent this on September 7th. A list of all the applicants and their applications from all rounds of application. Please identify which rounds a parent applied and their status in terms of denied, interview, approved. Agendas and minutes from all Transparency Committee forming committee meetings. A list of all the members of this Transparency Committee forming committee. How was it determined if an applicant was chosen for an interview, chosen to be on the committee, or not after the interview? And when can we expect it to be, well, I still would like to know when we could expect it to be formed. How many members will comprise the committee? What's the timeline of activities? And will universal enrollment continue for the 18-19 school year? So, is there a general time I can expect those answers?
I will get you those answers by Friday. I'll give it to you by Friday.
Are there any more questions for me?
Motion.
There's no further questions. Motion by Von Seca, second by Ms. Johnson. Motion to accept the September 11, 2017 Community Engagement Report delivered by Board Chair Carter, moved by Von Seca, second by Johnson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
I said aye. Say it again.
Our last committee report by Finance Committee by Chair Fonseca.
Legal.
Good evening, everyone. Legal. Oh, you guys want to do legal first? No? Okay. Yeah. I'll probably be here a bit, so might want to. You want to do legal first, Marquise?
We'll do legal first.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. The meeting was held September 14th from 3 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. Committee members via telephone were myself, committee member Johnson, Lewis, and Fonseca. District staff present was Ms. Wilson, Arson, Mr. D. Jamus, the Associate Deputy General Counsel. Agenda items for discussion. Number 1 was discussion regarding terms for George Washington Carver lease led by Ms. Wilson and Mr. Jamus. Item number 2, discussion regarding proposed sale of supplemental fringe benefits fund building led by Mr. D. Jamus. Number 3 was the explanation of license agreement with Student to Science. Item number 4 was explanation of resolution designating Chief Talent Officer as appointing authority for civil service purposes. In response to other item raised by myself, Mr. Arson confirmed that there were no policy revisions being brought before the board in September meetings, and the HIB report presented to the P&I committee, to his knowledge, appeared to be regular code-mandated reporting of incidents. Mr. D. Jamus responded to general questions regarding the cost and status of pending litigation. He provided an overview of the RFP process to retain outside counsel and gave a brief summary of litigation case management procedures. He advised that the legal office will present a high-level review of this process, as well as updates or important developments in certain significant cases at later committee meetings. And the meeting ended at 4:15 p.m.
Any questions? Motion.
Von Seca, second. Padilla. Motion to accept the September 14, 2017 Legal Committee meeting as delivered by Board Member Garcia, moved by Ms. Von Seca, second by Mr. Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Just really quickly.
Yes.
In the midst of transitioning to local control, I would like to see this committee more active, because there are serious legal issues affecting this district.
Mr. Bledsoe, excuse me, can you speak into the mic?
I said that I would like to see this committee become a lot more active, and often up until the point when it's time to vote on these things like legal contracts, we don't get updates on legal disputes, and I think that should happen in this particular committee because it's important.
Yeah, we're going to start to do that, absolutely. And resignations we were in the middle of a vote. I'm sorry, it was Von Seca, Padilla to accept. Everybody voted for, right? Yeah. Okay, all right, so it's 9-0, that report's accepted. Finance.
Wrong committee.
Finance Committee.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Come on, show me some love, guys. I know I'm last, but show me some love. Our meeting was held yesterday at 6 p.m. We began our meeting. Board members present were Dashe Carter, Tave Padilla, Reginald Bledsoe, myself. And on the district's end was Miss Valerie Wilson, Mr. Jason Ballard, Mr. Elvis Matos, Miss Sherelle Spriggs, Mr. DeJamis, Miss Savita Barraudwa. I hope I didn't kill your name. Miss Savita, she's nice, but I don't want to mess up her name. And Miss Nancy Deering. We had a very long meeting. We finished last night at 8:45, so, you know, you guys got summaries in front of you, but you have something. So we accomplished that in the Finance Committee. We are always presented at the Finance Committee with every single item that's a resolution item to be voted on at next week's meeting. So we kind of go through every single item and we discuss it briefly. Some of the items that were highlighted were, this is a big one, but I'm gonna give you guys detail. I'm gonna skip that part because I wanna give you guys details on it. Let's see. We discussed 12.5, which is the Hartford grant. Oh, wait, before I do that, I'm sorry. I want to just say, and I think we should give a big applause to Ms. Val and her team, but NPS has won the Certificate of Excellence Award and the Meritorious Budget Award. So just a huge shout out to her and her team. Sorry, I overlooked that. Just firsthand, I can say her team does tremendous work. I know they hear a lot from me, but they're a tremendous team and they put a lot of effort into everything that they do. So that award is very well deserved, both awards. So sorry I didn't do that first. So back to the items that we discussed. One of them was 12.5, which is the Hartford grant. Ms. Wilson stated this is a $10,000 grant used to develop a fire marshal and fire safety program. Another item that was highlighted was 12.8, which is very important for the board and the community to know. It's basically the cleaning and reconditioning of athletics, band, and clothing equipment. So Ms. Wilson stated that this is a contract that we got one response, and it's a 2-year contract with an option to renew. But basically, it's the bands and everyone's responsibility to make sure that they do their part, but the district did their part. So when we hear that uniforms aren't being done, now we know that the district actually did their part. It's the responsibility of the people at the schools or in charge of these positions to take care of it. So I think that's important for all of us to know, being that we've had some chaos about it recently. And one of the major items that we discussed, which is very thorough, it's item 12.4, which is the application for the appropriation of the additional state aid funding of $6.7 million that I'm sure everyone read about. And I want to thank the superintendent for having the team put this together because it was very helpful for everyone on the Finance Committee, and I know this took a lot of work, so thank you for having them put that together. So basically, not only as the Finance Committee, but the entire board, and I'm sure the community was requesting an idea of what are we spending this $6.7 million on. Sometimes we only hear about we're getting the money and we don't have an idea of what it's being spent on. So the team put together a breakdown, and I'm just gonna briefly go over those items. So one of the items is for academic program initiatives. One of them is ELL transportation for bilingual students, web connectivity, Lafayette Annex rental, new inclusion teachers for special education, Malcolm X Shabazz cosmetology lab, STEM week, robotics initiative, new math textbooks, and birth to third grade project manager. For the board members, I'm gonna make sure that all you guys get a breakdown of this. It was just given to us last night. I know there's like a breakdown of exactly how much and what it's gonna be, like what it's gonna be utilized for. So I'll make sure that everyone gets that. But that's an idea broken down for us of exactly how the money's gonna be spent. So I think that was very helpful. Let's see. One of the other, well, that was like we spent a lot of time talking about that. And the topics for discussion, which took up most of our time, were science to science agreement. Ms. Wilson stated that this cycle was a document to the board that outlines our agreement with Students to Science. It's an agreement that doesn't carry any financial agreement. I know we've been discussing that in various committees, so we discussed that to just understand that. Obviously, the budget allocation and spending of additional state aid, which is the $6.7 million that I just mentioned to you all, and the SEEK contract, well, lease. So That was a very extensive conversation. And I just want everyone to know on behalf of the committee, we all had different opinions as to where the lease stands at this time. But at the time of discussion, it was brought to the committee that they basically wanted a lease that ends like in 2046. So the committee, and I'm sure a lot of board members, we did not agree that that is something that is doable or something that's even a part of our discussion. Mr. Bledsoe did mention the fact that over the years, the district has approved leases that are very long leases, and we've lost a lot of our schools due to that. And when Mr. Bledsoe said it at the moment, me being the chair, I was just kind of registering what he was saying, but it actually hit home when I kind of like digested the information, because I was like, we need to be very open-minded when we are discussing this, not only as a committee, but as a full board, and understand like the bigger picture. We don't want to lose our schools the way we've lost them, but we also need to build an open relationship and have an open dialogue on how we move forward. So as a committee, although we discussed it and we didn't really come out with a final agreement on how we want to go about this, but as a committee, I can say that we were able to openly have this discussion, opposed to, no, this is where I stand with it, this is where I stand with it. Instead, we actually spoke about it. So two of the options, and I will defer all finance questions
Cole.
with regard to this lease.
Let's go, please, please, thank you. Okay, thank you. Ms. Fonseca is talking. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. So I just want the board to understand that when we discuss these items, again, we should be very open-minded about it. And I would defer all questions and any negotiations, discussions that were updated to Ms. Val. But I want to say that Ms. Val was able to answer our questions. I know Mr. DeJamis was there from legal. And there's a lot more to it than just what we're hearing. So that's why I'd rather Ms. Val answer the questions. But we approved every item as a committee. We approved every item. Well, we recommend that every item be approved with the exception of the lease, because changes were made just up until this afternoon. I think like while I was on my way here, we were still talking about it. So that's where we stand with that. And the next items for our next meeting that we will be having, we requested as a committee an update on the buildings that were sold from that we had discussed several months ago. And we understand that the city passed a resolution last month at their council meeting, but we want to know what the closing information is, how much were the buildings sold for, who bought the buildings, and just having an understanding of that. It's important to know. And also, Ms. Carter requested a list of all properties owned by the district. So we're supposed to be getting that information. Ms. Carter also requested an audit. Ms. Wilson suggested that we discuss the type of audit exactly that we're looking for. I know Leah mentioned that earlier, but we're all in committees discussing what type of audit we're looking for. I know the fiscal audit is very accessible, and we can get that at pretty much any time. And if we wanted a deeper information, Ms. Val is willing to work on that with us. Ms. Carter requested that some of the additional state aid be used for the community engagement department to get parents and community more involved in district events. It's a discussion that we had at our community engagement meeting, but also we discussed it in finance, so we're gonna work on submitting a proposal, because when we have our meetings, we wanna have stuff available to make it to keep everyone engaged, not just the parents, but we also wanna have the kids engaged at those meetings, so we're just playing with some ideas. Mr. Bledsoe requested that some of with regards to the state aid, that we use some for the Office of Student Support. I know they gave him some feedback as to the improvements that they've made in that department, but it's something that we want to make sure that we have flowing correctly. So I'll leave the rest to Ms. Val, but our meeting finished this says 8:30, but I know I was there until almost 9 o'clock. So that's about it. If anybody has any questions I can answer, I'd be more than glad to. Any questions regarding Carver, please speak to Ms. Val.
Ms. Wilson,
Ms. Carter?
can you explain, I know we said that the district won the 2 awards, just so that the community knows what that means for us as a district. Can you just let them know what those 2 awards mean, please?
Okay, good evening, Board Chair, members of the board, members of the community. The district has competed for and won on several occasions these two awards. They are presented by what is known as the Professional Organization for Business Officials. It's called the Association of School Business Officials. It is an international organization with members in Canada, Australia, and around the world, and predominantly in the U.S. We have won these awards for probably close to 11 consecutive years. We have also been the only district at one point in New Jersey to win the Meritorious Budget Award. I think there are now 3 in the entire 600 and some districts in New Jersey. And the Certificate of Excellence recognizes the financial reporting of our CAFRA. And that is, the last time I checked, I think there were 23 districts that were winning that award. I do not think there are any districts in the state that have won it as many times as we have.
Any other questions? Ms. Carter?
Yes.
So not a question, but are you going to elaborate on the seat carver?
Can I ask a question before we get there? Because I know that's going to be. Give you a moment to breathe. That's okay, Board Member Carter? Thank you. Just quickly, in terms of the additional state aid being used differently than what's been suggested, was there any consideration for it being used for the Office of Student Support? Like what? I see it was Board Member Bledsoe suggested it, but it doesn't say if he received any sort of response.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Mr. Bledsoe did make that suggestion. We talked about the extra supports that have been put in place for that office, including additional staff this year in the budget and other items that we are looking at. Part of the expenditures in the $6.7 million that we're talking about include an attendance group and other groups that will be helping that office. So that's why there was not a direct answer. There was also a request from the board member Carter with regards to the Community Engagement Committee and receiving funds. And I reminded her of the board's decision to support direct academic supports and asked that she present a proposal of what they would like to do, and I would put it before the committee for consideration.
So, I mean, if there's a possibility that it's revised, does that mean that we're not voting on this evening? Just so I'm unclear.
No, the request for the 5.9 million associated out of the 6.7 will move forward as we have discussed. These other two proposals would be additional things that we might discuss with. There's a remaining $930,000 that is at this point being assigned to fund balance.
Now, the Carver lease.
All right, I'm going to provide a synopsis. We did go over the Carver lease, I think last month at the business meeting in terms of what the conditions were at Carver. SEEK is a group that is seeking to actually renew a lease or enter into a new lease with the district for space at the Carver location. There are 3 schools located in the George Washington Carver building. There is Carver, with an enrollment of approximately, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 480. SEEK has about 530, and Bruce Street has somewhere in the neighborhood of about 65 kids. And I'm going to talk from some talking points I have, but I'm also talking from what I remember. SEEK, when they have been in the building since 2011 as a co-location. When they were originally chartered by the state, they were chartered to have grades K through 4. Carter is a grade K through 8 school. Bruce, I'm not sure of their grade components. Pre-K to probably 8th, right? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. So SEEK has had the lease for the last 6 years. They are now due for, their lease expired at the end of the 15-16 school year. So during 16-17, they remained in the building without a lease. We are now at the point that the board has to consider a lease arrangement. Has asked for a long-term lease that would actually end in 2046. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Has asked for a long-term lease that would end in 2046, which is a 29-year lease. The board was not considering that. As board members have indicated, it was not an acceptable term. Where we have since worked our way to is probably a 5-year lease with an investment from SEEK of $75,000 per year dedicated directly to Carver for improvements, capital improvements in the building with no renewals. It's a flat 5-year lease. That lease would allow Carver to grow, which Carver has the ability to grow now and can probably grow some 80 students in its current classroom spacing with everybody in the building, with Bruce, with Carver, with SEEK. Carver would be able to develop a plan for future growth. There is conversation around pre-K growth at Carver. Carver has never had a pre-K program, however, at least in the last 10 years. However, what we are saying is that the pre-K program could exist. There's potential for 4 classes of pre-K that could be put in place for the 18-19 school year immediately now with the current configuration as it exists. Those 4 pre-K classes would have 15 apiece. What is not existent is a waiting list for Carver pre-K because they haven't had it in the last 10 years. There is pre-K available in another area of the Southward, albeit that it is probably a little bit of distance from Carver, which is in the Clinton Hill area and is with 2 pre-K providers. As you know, the district uses almost 90 pre-K providers to provide services to children. All of the seats in district schools are filled at this point in time for pre-K. So if we created pre-K classes at Carver, which we could do with the current configuration, we could create 4 classes without moving anybody. Carver could increase their enrollment in their existing footprint in existing classrooms of some 20 homerooms by about 80 students because their class size is not at the state standard. They would not be overcrowding their classes. Right now, their classes average 17 per class. Board Chair?
Ms. Cole, Ms. Johnson, 1 meeting, please. 1 meeting. Oh, well, you're interrupting the meeting.
SEEK currently has a class size of an average of 28. Bruce has a class size of an average of, can't remember right now. What is it? An average class size, of 10.7 students. 10.7. So none of the classes are extremely overcrowded between Bruce and Carver. There is space for growth. A 5-year lease would provide the opportunity for students to grow into a program at the school, starting with pre-K, moving up through the grades, and then at that point, what we found is when students actually leave pre-K in the district, they do tend to go elsewhere for their other classes or for the rest of their school career. We would like them to remain at Carver and be able to grow with the school. So over the course of a 5-year period, whatever is decided at that point in time would result in Carver growing additionally. So that's where we are at this point in time. There would be a $75,000 per year investment, which is about $325,000 over the 5-year period, plus the lease payment, which is also slated for escalation at CPI over the 5-year period. What else do I need to tell you? In Carver, we will be making, the district will be making some investments. There's approximately $2.5 million in the capital bond that will be used for a new roof, repair of the air conditioning that will be only in the auditorium, because that is all that the air conditioner covers. And it will be, I think, the gymnasium. In addition, the investment that SEEK would be looking to make as part of their lease would allow the school to actually be able to do some of the other things that are talked about. We talk frequently about air conditioning of classrooms in the Carver space. I am being very clear that SEEK's investment would not be used for anything that the district has already committed to and is planning to do, so that the school would be able to further benefit from the investment. I think I've covered all the points.
Thank you. Any questions, board members?
Thank you, Ms. Val.
Can
I don't have,
Can I get a motion?
I don't have
Motion.
questions, but I have a comment. I don't know if it's, y'all want me to hold that?
We're going to vote next week, but
I can hold it to next week, no problem. Continue.
Is there something else?
No.
Okay, because this is the way we can inform everybody.
Ready? Okay, Mr. Bledsoe made the motion to accept. Is there a second? Garcia. Motion to accept the September 18th Finance Committee report as delivered by Ms. Fonseca. Moved by Mr. Bledsoe, second by Ms. Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Motion carries. Report accepted.
Thank you, board members, for your report. Next, we'll have our superintendent report.
Thank you very much, Board Chair. Thank you, members of the community, for being here. Thank you, members of the board, for all the work you have put in over the last stretch of time. I have been very, very happy that so many of you have had a chance, as we've opened school, to come to school, to sit in with me as I learn more and more about individual schools. I've been very, very grateful to have your company at these meetings and at numerous other events. Let me begin by extending my most profound congratulations to not only the city of Newark, but the people of Newark and the members of this board for the vote that took place at the State Board of Education. That has brought about the final stages of the transition to full local control. I will say that that is a real reflection, I think, of three different things. One is the progress that this district has made in its core mission of educating the students, the children of Newark. Second, frankly, the sense of unity that has increasingly characterized these public meetings, has increasingly characterized the conversation that has taken place in this community, which adds to that foundation upon which to build and even better and continue the system and to continue to grow. And third, I actually think it is a direct compliment to members of this board for the hard work they have put in, as reflected in the honor that was mentioned before, but I think, frankly, more fundamentally, in the effort to engage in the very difficult, very complicated enterprise of really giving every child in this district an opportunity at a successful public education. So that has been noticed, and I know there's been a lot of work behind it, a lot of leadership, And I know that the path has not been the shortest distance between 2 points, but I really do think it is a moment to reflect on and build upon going forward. We're not going to spend any time talking about the process that remains ahead, but I will say this. It is my commitment to work as hard as I can with this board and this state to make sure that it happens as quickly as possible. And I'm very much focused on that, and I'm sure that I speak for members of the board that moving that process forward as quickly as possible is something that we are all aligned around. The state doesn't necessarily move with at the speed of light, but I know that I really do genuinely believe that this thing can move very, very, very quickly. Frankly, the next step is the development through a collaborative process of creating of a transition plan. That transition plan will then be presented to the board, and that is actually, for those of you who are following the sort of legal ins and outs of this, that is the official moment of the transition to local control. I want to endorse the suggestion of Board Member Owens, and I've actually said this in the past. I think from henceforward, we strike the word advisory from all publications, from all statements, from all conversational pieces, from all conversations with the press, and that we really begin as of this moment to operate as a unified, aligned board organized around, a pretty, frankly, I think the most important mission there is, and that is to give everyone a quality public education. So congratulations to everybody involved. And I will just quickly say that this kind of thing in government doesn't just happen. There are a lot of people, too many to mention here, who work on our team who have really, 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 really worked hard to manage our way through the CUSAC process and to manage our way to the successful resolution that we have. So thank you very much to all of them. This is a business meeting and not a full meeting, so I'm simply going to anticipate some of the substantive issues we'll discuss more fully at the meeting. I know the committee has given extensive reports, and so much of the work of this district takes place at those committee meetings, and the public benefits from the full presentation of what happened. But let me quickly mention just a couple of things. It's, there are something like 5,700 people who work for the Newark Public School System. We spend about $1 billion a year. There is an enormous amount of energy and interest in virtually every aspect of it. But at the end of the day, for all of the toing and froing, the back and forth, the rhetoric and so on, we exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is to absolutely address the reality that equality of opportunity is not a reality in this country or in this state, and to try to address that through giving children an opportunity for success in life. It is a truly, truly critical mission. And certainly when we talk about our performance in the kind of metrics which reduce to quantification, such as high-stakes tests, we certainly appreciate that that is not the sum and the substance of all the educational things that are happening, by the way, before state takeover, during the interim period, and going forward. There are lots of ways to measure success. But honestly, if a child cannot read on grade level, if a child cannot do mathematics on grade level, we know from overwhelming research that their probability of having success, as pretty much anyone would measure it, through lifetime earnings, through health, through avoidance of conflict or contact with the judicial system, is substantially diminished. So when we report, and thank you for the extensive report from the Program Instruction Committee, when we report that we made progress on the park, I think it is also a moment to really celebrate the progress that we have made. A couple of quick highlights. The percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations across the district was up for the second consecutive year. We have particular progress in 3rd through 8th grade, which is the foundation that we are building on. 2 consecutive years is very meaningful in this business. The fact that these gains were especially pronounced in the early years, I take as an encouraging sign for the future. We finally had a breakthrough year in mathematics in 3rd through 8th grade. I know we've got some very deep work that's gone on in the curriculum department there, and it's nice to see that bearing results. I think it is interesting to note that our growth exceeded the growth rate of the state, which means we are closing the gap with the state in both reading and math. I also, by the way, look, and I know that there are lots of points of view about this, but I can only tell you mine. I look at the aggregate number of children who live in Newark, and I look at them and I say, are more and more of them every year in the aggregate succeeding in life? And that measure is also very encouraging. So when I look at vocational tech schools, when I look at charter schools, when I look at traditional public schools, when I look at magnets, and the best news of all is the success is not one sector at the expense of the other. They're all rising. Together. We will report. It's a little hard to gather this data. We will report on how these results compare with similar districts across the state and the nation, and that all is moving forward. You could just look at you can't read it, so I won't talk about it, but notice the gradient on the graph, but also notice the comparatively low numbers, meaning that while we are seeing progress and gap narrowing, we are also seeing that is off of a low base. You have to remember that with the advent of the PART test, the state average hovers at around 50%. So you have to take this in some context. But what you want to see is the gradient as it appears on there. There's improvement. Just a couple of quick facts to anticipate the next meeting. There's improvement across nearly every grade level. There are particularly, if you disaggregate the data, and I find this very, very interesting, and you look at students who have attended Newark Public Schools for the last 3 years, you see the growth rate is considerably higher. In other words, not students who are new to the district or are transient but have stayed in the system for 3 years. You see significantly higher increases there. We had very significant increase in participation in the PART test, and so on. So I want to just make a few summary comments about this before we go back to the other elements of the agenda. And I say this in the context of you all who are accepting the reins of control, because I think the results really raise a couple of, well, they raise a lot of interesting questions, but some that really jump out at me is, first of all, the magnet high schools are significantly outperforming both the traditional comprehensive schools and the charter schools and the vocational tech schools. And this district, unique in my experience, is sending 36% of its students to magnet schools. So I just think there are policy implications of that Board Member Owens has identified and others have talked about. I think it raises really deep questions going forward. Second, and this is a really interesting number that we're still getting to the bottom of, is the 9th graders in our comprehensive high schools present very differently from the students in our 8th grade. I'm talking about NPS. Very, very, very differently. There is a major exodus of students from the 8th grade traditional general education classes to the 9th grade comprehensive high schools. So when you see the very low results in the comprehensive high schools, it actually really becomes increasingly easy to understand when you look at the very high percentage of children who go to magnet schools. Actually, comparatively few 9th graders leave NPS and go to charter schools. That number is actually very small. A material number move out of the district, that they go, the schools are good enough on 3rd through 8th grade, but not good enough for high school. We see that a lot in Newark, and we also see a significant number choosing to go to the county voc tech schools. So if you look at the performance level of incoming ninth graders at the large comprehensive high schools, they are dramatically lower and different than the numbers you see in the eighth grade because they are very different students. So I think that is, again, something that, the whole idea of data is to give you something to make policy off of. I think that raises a lot of interesting questions. A third observation is the district schools grew more than the charter schools in math and about the same in reading, but the charter schools still outperformed the district. And I did another analysis you may find interesting, is I looked at the general ed population in the traditional schools. In other words, I took out special education students and English language learners, and I just looked at the general ed population, and then I compared that to the charter schools, which include 4% ELL and about 10 or 11% special education. And that does indeed narrow the gap, but the charters still are performing at a materially higher level than our general education students. I would also tell you that, as I mentioned before, that I think that the metric that I think is by far and away the most relevant is the one that focuses on all of Newark, and I'm very pleased to report the progress across the city of Newark was positive. I will also say that if you look, you may recall that Park is graded on a 5-point scale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the national direction is to only focus on 4s and 5s. But I also think we should focus on 3, not that that's good enough, because it means that you are very much in the game. You are in a position to really transcend that up to a higher level of proficiency. And I think I'm also happy to report there's a lot of progress in moving from 1s and 2s to 3s, so they're not reflected on the chart because that chart only shows 4s and 5s, but we're seeing some positive trends in that line too. And the last thing I'll say about this is none of this makes any difference at all unless we do something with it. And that is the value of this data is it enables us to really think about different ways to approach the task of education. And you will hear a good deal about that next week, about how our academic team, our assistant superintendents, our principals worked over the summer to take these data and to make what you would call in any other sector management decisions about where to assign teachers, where to assign students, where to have specialized interventions, which subjects, which substrands or strands of the curriculum to pay particular attention to make up for deficits. That, to me, frankly, is the most valuable part of this work, and I look forward, I think we're going to hear from Deputy Superintendent Gregory and Chief Academic Officer Haggerty and others about that process next time. So with that, I see that we have gained Mr. Padilla. So I hand the microphone back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any questions for board members for the superintendent? Mr. Bledsoe?
Mr. Superintendent, you talk about the transition between 8th grade to 9th grade. Can you provide the public and this board the percentage of students that go elsewhere?
I can do that. I can't do it right now, but I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board member?
I have a question.
The disembodied voice of Miss Gaddy.
Miss Gaddy, you're up
Yes.
next. Miss Kim, you're up next.
So I know I mentioned this to you, Superintendent. Can you guys hear me? I'm sorry, I was in echo.
Yes, Denise. Yes, Kim, we can.
I have a question in regards to a fact sheet that we could disseminate to the community as it relates to local control and the process. We discussed this in one of the committees, and also I just think that it is something that the community should have. The Wheatbread High School Alumni Association has asked me to come and make a presentation before them, so I think we all should be staying and delivering the same message. So is that something that you prepare, Superintendent?
We'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to the superintendent? No? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, item number 6, the board will now retreat to an executive session.
Let's
We
just,
shall return.
let's just have an explanation by Ms. Shambo about what's going on. Ms. Shambo, can you explain?
Sure. Just on behalf of Board Member Carter, there is a voting item this evening for hiring the Assistant Superintendent of High Schools. The executive session is optional, but we put it on the agenda if people would like to go into executive session to discuss that hire. A board member would have to make a motion to do that.
Yes, could I ask a clarifying question?
Mr. Superintendent?
Yeah, thank you. Right, sorry about that. The executive session is only necessary if there's going to be a substantive discussion of the candidate personally.
Correct.
In other words, if the board is prepared to vote without, based on what they know in committee and so on, then the executive session is not necessary. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
I mean, this is the voting item right now, I think, right? Is that right, Ms. Shambo? Okay, so is there,
So let me ask any board members, do you have questions about the personnel item?
Josie?
If you do, we gotta go on executive session.
Josie?
We can't talk about it. You sure? Anyone? Ms. Johnson? You have questions? All right.
Leah's not here. Crystal? Any question? You good? Josie?
Mr. Lewis, I think we were missing some board members to vote.
Yeah, we gotta vote on it. We have to vote on this item tonight, so if you have questions, we gotta ask tonight.
So ask. No, we can't. Ask them if they're
do
prepared to
it
vote
after.
on the motion without discussion.
Are we prepared to vote on the motion without discussion? Yes or no?
Ms. Johnson?
You think so? I don't want to spend another hour on this.
Because what they don't understand is executive session is required.
Okay. All right.
So the, hi guys, I'm back. So the Personnel Committee recommended that we vote for the new Assistant Superintendent. However, if there are any questions from board members, are there any questions? And wanting to know anything, you have a question? Okay, so then I motion for us to go into executive session to discuss the hiring of the new Assistant Superintendent.
Okay, go.
Okay, there's a motion to go into executive session to discuss the new assistant superintendent's executive session for the reason of personnel. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstain? Okay, so motion.
Question, how many board members have questions? So I'm thinking it'd be about 15 minutes.
Maybe.
Yeah. We're gonna roll call to go into executive session. Does anybody oppose executive session?
Yes, come on.
Okay. You want a roll call? I think we're
Let's
ready.
go.
All right, let's go. Okay, motion carries, executive session.
The vote.
Take the vote. Let's go.
Bang the gavel for the start. Marquise, bang the gavel.
I hear a beautiful little.
Meeting back, call to order.
Can I have a motion to reconvene from executive session?
Motion.
Bledsoe, second.
Can we get a Jack
Johnson.
Johnson, I'm sorry.
This is a motion to reconvene to open session from executive session. Moved by Ms. Bledsoe, second by Ms. Johnson. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Back in open session. Can I have a motion on the personnel item?
Can we get a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Second?
The personnel item.
Personnel.
Yes.
The personnel item.
Ms. Carter on the second. Okay, this is a motion to vote for Dr. Angela Allen McMillan as Assistant Superintendent. Moved by Vice Chair Padilla, second by Ms. Carter. Roll call. Ms. Bledsoe?
No.
Ms. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Fonseca?
Abstain.
Ms. Gaddy? Did Ms. Gaddy's vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
Yes.
Johnson? Ms. Owens?
Yes.
Vice Chair Padilla?
Yes.
Chair Lewis?
Yes.
Motion carries. Dr. Angela Allen McMillan is appointed Assistant Superintendent. Next item on the agenda.
No, we need to vote on this. The community needs to vote. Y'all want to have a wide search for a superintendent. We need to have a wide search for a deputy. What kind of mess is this?
All right,
Public
what's next,
participation.
Marquise? All right, let's move.
Public participation. Ms. Boston.
Keep me in check. Pretty soon you're gonna kick my.
Ms. Boston.
We should have some say. I want to say personally, do she think they know it? Do she walk over them crack down like those kids walk over?
Ms. Boston. Please, thank you.
No, we want somebody from North.
Thank you. Now we have public participation.
Mr. Chair, what about agenda items 7 and 8? Are we moving around the agenda?
Garbage is this.
I apologize. 7. Resolution. The resolution supporting school safety and equal opportunity for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender students.
Motion.
We got a motion.
Bledsoe. Is there a second? Garcia.
Second, Garcia. We'll vote.
Yeah, read it, Reggie.
Is it in there?
The item's not on, the item's not in ESB. Why?
Do you want to just summarize it, Mr. Bledsoe?
So just quickly, I just would like to,
Okay, let's have a order, please.
Excuse me.
just quickly, I just would like to give a brief overview. First, I would like to thank the Chief Academic Officer, Brad Haggerty, for supporting this. Also, Dr. Sunrise Smith, once again. This resolution in itself supports members of the LGBTQ community who happen to be students in our district. It supports them in their activities for gender-based activities. It also supports them in terms of being treated fairly in school. And it also provides us opportunity to partner with so many great organizations throughout the city, for particularly the Hendrick Martin Institute, the Newark LGBT Commission, which a member of this district staff should be on that commission. But it holistically support that organization and that particular group of students. So I'm proud to be the sponsor and support of this because our children deal with so many issues, and any opportunity given to support the whole child, I'm gonna always be a part of it. So thank you again to my colleagues for your consideration on this. And it also gives us an opportunity to learn specifically of the history and the contributions of LGBTQ leaders throughout, this country's great history. So once again, thank you again, and I'll be open to answering any questions.
Okay. We had a motion to vote on this item. It was moved by Mr. Bledsoe and second by Ms. Garcia. Roll call. Mr. Bledsoe?
Yes.
Ms. Carter?
I'm confused. What are we voting on? I don't understand.
That's what I was just
It's on the agenda. it's on the agenda for tonight. I mean, is that your understanding?
Right.
It should be next
For,
week.
my understanding is on the agenda just for discussion, and we're just
Is it on the-
recognizing it,
What's the, is it on the
and
agenda
then
for
we're
discussion?
actually voting next month. Next month, next
Okay,
week.
I guess we're just discussing it. Okay.
Withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cole. I appreciate it. It seems like it's on the agenda. Will we vote on?
So,
Is it on the agenda for the, we'll see now, we're reviewing the agenda.
Council, let me provide clarification. We do not vote on items at the business meeting tonight. We voted on a personnel item as a item that was required and is time sensitive. This
Okay, so-
particular resolution and others are on the agenda for review and discussion.
so I withdraw my motion.
Why is, okay. It was just listed as a separate item for the business meeting, which is unusual. So we'll move on?
Yeah, just move on.
So, excuse me, I just noticed something else about the agenda. We didn't approve next week's agenda.
We're doing that next. We're doing that next.
That's not.
Oh, Zay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's why I had thought
That's
that
why.
there's a separate item, so. But, Madam SBA is right, it's also listed as an item on the agenda for next week's meeting. So let's move on to item 8, Mr. Chair.
8, item 8, the approval of agenda for September 26th.
Motion.
Regular meeting.
Second.
Question?
Discussion.
All right, let me-
Any questions on the agenda?
Yes.
Ms. Owens?
Thank you. So just further discussion on the item, the lease, wherever that is, 12.20. So I just wanted to get clarification on the next steps, considering that there was substantial conversation, and just wanted to add that I was able to visit the school, George Washington Carver and Bruce Street School for the Deaf this afternoon, immediately before their back-to-school night, and then I was able to stay a little bit into the back-to-school night as well. And so I just wanted to support the program instruction report that I gave earlier, that there are a lot of great things going on at their school. There was good family turnout in the auditorium. Board Member Carter also was there for the back-to-school night, and probably shouldn't say this, but as a former teacher at Central High School, where Principal Thomas was the vice principal there, and then also current Vice Principal Gill was a colleague of mine in the English department, I can definitely speak personally to their professionalism and who they are as educators, and I can see walking through that building that they are really making significant change. So I just, I wanted to say that on the record, and I completely support and a strong advocate of the expansion of George Washington Carver. I know we still need to have more conversation about what's going to happen with Bruce Street School for the Deaf in the future, if that's going to move to Elliott Street. There's definitely opportunities there to expand that program as well. For Carver in particular, I don't think we should not limit ourselves, right? We are the Newark Public Schools Board of Education. We are here to support the best interests of the students that we educate in this district. So we need to continue to expand Carver. So all that to say, I just wanted clarification about how we're moving forward, because a lot was said. There's still suggestions out on the table. We're not clear if it's going to be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I know I still want to have more conversation about how much KIP is actually going to contribute towards capital investments and what that means. And we're trying to vote on this in a week. So I'm trying to figure out how that's going to happen in 1 week. And this is a very important decision.
So my understanding is that this is a contract negotiation. That will be completed by the negotiating team and reduced to a resolution, which you will have an opportunity to vote on or to amend at the meeting. So you are quite right, Ms. Owens. It is a dynamic process that is not settled yet. But when it does settle, it'll be reduced in writing for your consideration.
Thank you,
So
Ms.
my
Johnson.
question,
Yeah.
my question is, you said it would be a resolution at the next meeting in which we can then amend, but if we amend something and they haven't agreed to it, how does that work?
Well, I guess what you'd be saying is you would vote on this, and then they would have the opportunity to consider it, and they
So-
could accept
So
the
we would
original.
negotiate in public versus
No,
us?
no, I would not consider that a negotiation in public. I would consider that to be First of all, I hope that we, working behind the scenes, and it is awkward to do this in public, we sort of let everyone know where we were in the discussions, that we would come to the board with a resolution that a majority felt comfortable with. That would be my fervent hope and regard. If you all vote it down or want to amend a term, then we would not have, and I'm speaking to you as a reformed lawyer, you would not have a closed.
Ms. Cole.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms.
Cole.
Cole,
Go
thank you.
ahead, Mr. Superintendent.
That it would not be a closed contract until the other party had agreed to it.
Okay, if I can add, I too visited Carver and Seek this week. I'm just going to briefly comment and save the rest of my comments for next week. But I concur with what Board Member Owen said. I encourage board members to really remember who we're here to serve. And I feel like we need to support Mr. Thomas and all his efforts. The school is very promising. I spoke with him. I did a walkthrough. You see the clear difference between Seek and Carver, as I said before. Our students were learning in hot classrooms. I went with Josie. Some of the hallways looked like we were walking through an institution. When you were in the Seek part, you needed a keypad to get in. It was very vibrant and inviting. That wasn't the same for us. So I want board members to remember our job is to support Mr. Thomas and his efforts. He wants to expand. Earlier, we mentioned increasing the class size. We do know that students learn better in smaller class sizes, so just because a statute says we can have 24 students in a class, that's not our goal, to max out the classrooms to 24 for another school to do what they want to do. I also want us to be mindful that we're not selling our children. And so it's not their job to do improvements in the building. While that may be nice, it's not their job. And for me, something that I would like to see is to make sure that professional development is being shared. We talk about the paint, we talk about the air conditions and all of that, but it's problematic to me that we have students on the third floor exceeding on higher levels than our students downstairs. So it's like the have and the have-nots in the same building. So more so than the infrastructure of the building, I want to know how both schools can collaborate, since Seek did say that they were about all students and it wasn't just about this lease. So I want us to make sure that we're able to do that. I also want board members to know that Mr. Thomas did express that there has been some psychological damage done in the school with the teachers and the students. And so that's important for us to be aware of. Students see that there's a difference between them and Seek students, as well as our teachers. So in this next week, and thinking about whatever Ms. Val and the superintendent come back and tell us what the numbers are and what terms we're still trying to negotiate, don't be blinded by the dollar sign, because you wouldn't want your children sold. So just keep that in mind when we make our decision.
Mr. Lewis? Right here, Fonseca. I'm gonna have to start talking so y'all know when I talk. As the chair of the Finance Committee, please accept my request with the utmost respect. But I'm gonna ask the board that we have a few days to figure this out, right? So negotiations don't happen overnight. So literally, we finished our meeting at 8:45 last night, and Val was doing this work like at 9-something and had been on the phone all morning, right? So this is like, we need to be realistic when we're making these decisions based on the terms of what's being presented to us, because we can't just sit here and throw out what our recommendations are and think that that's gonna happen on the spot, because that's not how it works in the real world. So we need to be very responsible when we're talking about these options. And I know there were two things that Ms. Val and I had discussed earlier, which I know she gave everyone a briefing on, but whatever questions you have, whether it's about the academics of how this is gonna work and the realistic turnout of what can happen at Carver, or what Seek is willing to provide, and just the whole big picture. I know everyone has been involved in discussions, but I'm just asking, based on what this committee is able to do and what we're trying to move forward with, that you guys ask all your questions between the next 24 hours, let's have a realistic time of when you make your decision, because if we come back next Tuesday and we're like, well, we want to throw this option out there, that's not realistic. And time is of the essence, so I just want us to be very responsible. This is like, honestly, like, this is on us. So, and I know we all can agree to disagree, it's not about that, but, excuse me. I respect everybody, so can I just I really don't talk, I just want to get my point across. But, so I'm just asking on this committee, if you guys have any questions, any concerns, please send them over to Ms. Val within the next 24 hours. If she can't answer, I'm sure she'll get somebody to answer, but she's pretty good at answering our questions. But we need to have this can't stay open at this point. So we need to be very aggressive on what we want to see and how we want to see it fall out. It's up to us how we vote on it, but just ask your questions now, because next Tuesday is the vote, as you all know. And, we're going to be here tonight. So I'm just telling you guys to please just be prepared on that. I would really appreciate it, just on behalf of what we're trying to do and just kind of getting everybody in the loop.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Owens.
Thank you. Just quickly, I'd just like to thank Board Member Fonseca for her comments, and it reminded me of one of my questions is what sort of capital improvements we're actually looking to make in the facility, because this is not my realm of expertise. I don't know how much $75,000 will get us. I don't know how much it's going to cost to get an AC in the auditorium, so we can actually have maybe a prioritized list of capital improvements and how much they'll cost, so that can give us a better idea if it's beneficial for us to go 5 years and at that $75,000 a year, and then of course the other $25,000 provided earmarked by the district through the rent, because I know that would help me to understand if we're really getting a good deal.
That's fair.
So I just want to, there's a lot of questions that's being asked here tonight that I really don't feel comfortable that we can iron out these questions in the next 7 days.
Yes, we can.
So I think that we need more time to really look into this, and Ms. Johnson, and we need to really discuss this thoroughly. So I just wanted to ask. I want to ask our operations committee chair, do you think that this is something we should move to next month so we can do more dialogue around this situation?
Mr. Chairman, we have been discussing this, I believe, in every committee. We did it at Personnel. We did it at Legal. We did it at Finance. It ran by P&I. And it ran through Operations. I agree with Board Member Fonseca. If you have any questions pertaining to any matter with this contract, this lease, I urge you to put those questions in writing, submit them to Ms. Wilson as soon as possible. It's Tuesday. We have a week. And I would say on record right now, it's not like we don't know. It's not like we don't know. This ran by every committee. Everybody knows about it. And again, going in agreement with my board member and my colleague, Ms. Fonseca, if you have any questions, refer them to Ms. Wilson. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Gaddy.
as a member of the Operations Committee, I concur with my other two colleagues. Some of us have been on this daily, going back and forth with questions with the administration. So it is the responsibility of us as board members to do our due diligence to pay attention to our emails and engage. And I am fully confident that with the work that our BA is doing and the legal team, that we should be able to vote on it next week.
So we're gonna move on. Mr. Bledsoe.
I just, the question is the approval of the agenda. So I just would like to, through board relations, reiterate that quite often there are resolutions that make it to committee without all of the required signatures from the respective departments. So I'm asking that we be mindful that we receive the agenda in a timely manner so that we can review all of the documentation presented, not the Tuesday or the Monday before the business meeting. I have a problem with that. Secondly, I would like to also reiterate that it is the responsibility of this board to monitor that process. And you as the chair, respectfully, that you monitor and we're very serious about that. Very serious about it. So I know that we did receive an email apologizing for the delay, but I'm just not comfortable that we continue to move in that direction.
That's it?
Okay, is there a? Motion to accept the agenda? Von Seck, is there a second? To accept the agenda? Motion to accept next week's agenda moved by Ms. Von Seck, second by Ms. Bledsoe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or?
Opposed.
You oppose the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, passes 8-1. Agenda's fixed.
Okay. All right, now.
Public participation.
This is the public participation portion of the meeting. As a reminder, time limits for all speakers are enforced. No sharing or granting of speaking time to others. Speakers must be present when their name is called. Speakers are required to give their names and addresses. The public participation portion at business meetings is a 10 speakers, first come, first served basis. Examples of unacceptable behavior that are not permitted include but are not limited to naming district employees and engaging in personal attacks, slurs, excessive loudness, calling out, yelling, generally disruptive behavior, attempt to disrupt the meetings, or inciting others to do so. Public participation is intended to allow individual members of the public the opportunity to address the board and administration on issues of public concern, not as a forum for a two-way dialogue with board members or district officials. The superintendent or designee or board chair may respond to questions at the end of the session, or responses may be provided at a later time. The superintendent or board chair may interrupt any speaker or terminate any privilege if the speaker's comments are disruptive or obscene. An individual may be cautioned that a personally directed statement may be slanderous or defaming, and the individual may be liable for his or her statements. Attempts to hijack or filibuster the proceedings, repeated interrupting or badgering the board chair or district officials, repetitive and truculent speech, or disregard of rules of decorum are not tolerated and may subject the individual to removal from the meeting. If necessary, the meeting may be adjourned.
First speaker, Gail Muhammad.
Good afternoon, Superintendent, board members, and community members.
Good afternoon.
My name is Gail Muhammad. I'm the president of Local 3, Food Service Workers Department, 120 Prince Street, North New Jersey. I'm here today because I need to give a resolution, and Lorenzo, could you give all of them a copy of this, please? The board and the superintendent and Ms. Wilson? Between custodian workers and security guard and food service workers, do you guys know we have 550 per diem workers? Most of our per diem workers are full-time workers during the school year. These per diem workers are not fly-by-day night temporarily employed. Almost 70% of the per diems have worked in the North Public School for 3 years or longer. Some have worked more than 20 years as a per diem. Per diems receive no sick days. North Public School is the only large employer in the city of North that do not provide all sick days, all employees with sick days. Public sector in the city of North with less than 10 employees has been required by law to provide 40 hours, 5 to 8 hours a day of paid sick day. All employees, part-time and full-time. Since the North Public sick days ordinance was passed in the law in 2014. 20 cities in New Jersey have similar laws on the book. Pardines has no job security. North Public Schools reserve the right to suspend and fire Pardines without just cause or without due process. Union Local 617 and Local 3, Workers United both support paid sick days and a fair process for disciplinary for all non-instructional workers pardine at the North Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Donald Jackson.
It's cool. How are you? Good evening, residents, staff, board members, superintendent, business administrator, and whomever else I missed. Good evening. Whew. Boy. I guess some things just won't never change. Some folk will never change, and we'll keep complaining and crying, but won't do no work. First thing I saw was this picture, and this picture just made me bust out laughing. But I guess folks is really serious. But I see the mayor holding the plaque. I barely see the board chair, who I thought should have been out front. As a matter of fact, just off of principle, the Newark Board of Education should have been up front. Teresa Ruiz shouldn't have been in the picture. Neither Ms. Pinto or Marin shouldn't have been in the picture. And see, the problem is, Newark, you need to understand that the folk that act like they got us here was the reason why we weren't here 10 years ago. Don't let people fool you. See, unfortunately, I'm sorry I have to take this tone, but the problem is folk will confuse you, bamboozle you, and lie to you. Newark was at this point 10 years ago. 10 years ago. But what did the state do? Change the requirements. Change this. Change that. Thus, 10 years later. Superintendent Cerf, thank you for your presentation. However, I think you failed to mention one thing when we were talking about the road to local control, because we yet have it. 18A semicolon 7A-49. I want you all to read that, and then we can sit down and have a real discussion. Because unfortunately, there's no specific timeline. See, state control was to take over the district, but it was never designed to leave the district. So again, Newark, don't be bamboozled and don't be fooled. So why local control all of a sudden? Why? 2017 is definitely a very versatile time, particularly in my lifetime, even though, I can't remember any time in my lifetime where it wasn't always a hot topic or a pressing issue. Maybe some older people can, fill in some blanks. But we look at what's going on now. The state is going broke. Dwindling state aid. The board can't decide whether they want to raise the tax levy that wasn't raised for 20 years or rescind that vote, because, it'll help people get reelected instead of doing the business of the board and making sure that this district survives. So the bigger question is, why now all of a sudden local control? And I guess my time is up, but, those are some real questions. And Newark, again, don't be bamboozled and don't get fooled. I know it looks good. Everybody want to be on TV. Everybody want to have a celebration. But this is not a time to celebrate. This is a time to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And speaking only through you, parents, community residents, distinguished board members, and friends of Newark Public Schools, my name is Che Coulter. I'm also the district leader for District 16 in the Southward. I'm a very moderate Republican, and I support all of the parents and students here in Newark Public Schools. Something came past an Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholder formal meeting And one of the freeholders that is aware of my pursuits told me I might want to share something with this board. So I'm just going to read an ordinance that was passed at their last meeting, if I could, Mr. Chairman, because this could be beneficial to your term and to your colleagues' ability to provide opportunities. So, Department of Public Works and Division of Engineering. Resolution of the County of Essex, New Jersey, determining to adopt the Energy Savings Improvement Program. Authorized the development agreement not to exceed $111,569. Delegating the execution of the project development agreement to the county executive. Whereas the County of Essex, New Jersey, is desirous of following the requirements of PL 12, Chapter 55, also known as the Energy Savings Improvement Program, and the county participated in local government energy audit program for an independent audit of county facilities. This was passed, Mr. Chairman, back in 2015, but the Freeholder Board has, by me holding them accountable, has made a recommitment to their auditing of all their BTU electric energy usage across all county facilities, including Newark County facilities that are in Newark geographic areas. Let me speed this up. So, whereas the second paragraph of the ordinance, whereas the county utilized a competitive contracting process to select Honeywell International as its energy services company, and on June 8th, 2016, directed Honeywell International to proceed with the development of a countywide energy savings program, and Honeywell International submitted said energy savings program on January 18th, 2017. I won't read the whole ordinance, Mr. Chairman, but I wanted to submit this to your desk and eventually scan and email it to you, because I had a conversation with Honeywell today, and I'll share that with you. They're willing to work with Newark Public School students in the years to come on students that are on an electrical engineering track, maybe at Technology High School, so that they can get some experience with auditing all of the high schools, but they can get experience with auditing energy usage and how that works. This is a major corporation who's in New Jersey. We're trying to keep them in New Jersey, as long as we don't raise taxes too much. But Newark can benefit from this relationship with Honeywell, and Newark being in Essex County, if I am chosen to be on the County Freeholder Board or not, Honeywell said they're willing to assist me with this, okay? So we're gonna, the connection's been made. I just wanna let you know that this will be something that Newark Public School students can benefit from in the years to come.
Please contact Mr. Thomas. You can partner.
Thank you.
Yes, I will work with Ms. Cole as well and other concerned citizens. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, my mother's a bulldog, Mr. Chairman.
Next speaker, Donna Jackson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody? I just want to make sure you're all awake. Everyone.
Good morning.
Hello? Can we call out a name, Mrs. I just point of clarification before I start. If we're saying something good, like if I want to say Mr. Leon, Ms. Mendez, Mr. Glover, Mr. Gregory over there, can we say a name if it's a good comment? Just for the record, I wanted to know. Thank you. Not tonight, though. Not tonight. No, we needed to have a little humor. It's a very tight time, and these are very troubling times. And this is a time I need you board members to be individual. I need you to stand up and do what you're supposed to do. So, son, as much as I argue with you, as much as I beat you up sometimes, you know I love you, and you should have been holding that plaque. You are the longest sitting board member. How dare you be disrespected? And I'm going to deal with that, because you were disrespected. You were. You were. You've been on this battlefield a minute, because we've been battling. You should have been holding that plaque. That was a Newark Public School Day, not a City of Newark Day. It wasn't Mayor Rasbaraka re-election, let me hold this up because I got state control, because you didn't. You should have been holding that plaque. So I think we're going to take another picture. So the board members that didn't make it, we could look uniform. because you guys need to understand, this ain't about politics no more, and y'all better stop it. Stop it. People asking you to do stuff you know is wrong. Stop it. Stop making commitments. It's a Newark Public School Board. And I know we have co-located buildings before you got here. I understand that. But this is an issue. It's a serious issue. It was an issue at Madison. That's why they put the kids out of there. They put them out. See, when it becomes an issue, a psychological issue, because that is psychological. You got kids going on the 3rd floor, because that's where they start in most of these buildings, freshly painted, new carpeting, air conditioning in every room, da-da-da-da-da. And then you got the kids downstairs who know that's not happening for them. Now we want to play this little test score game that they're doing better than our kids. How? They get colors as a grade. So how do we know that that green, that yellow, that orange that they get equates to what we do in North Public Schools? The curriculums are different. They don't follow the state curriculum. So there's no way this thing can level out. So again, everybody, oh, kumbaya, let's come together. No, because we don't want to tell the truth. We don't want to level the playing field. Gave some air conditioners for summer school and took them back. So I say this. We're back in school now. Unfortunately, the temperature is still high. Unfortunately, Mr. Surf, we still got some shootings going on.
Yes, Lord.
And unfortunately, during the day. Yes. Unfortunately, we had a catastrophe at university that did not go past anything happening. But I think this is time for us to reflect and look at what we're doing. And I'm seriously asking everybody to take this serious, because there's multitude of reasons it should never happen. But there's a reason the kid brings a gun to school. There's a reason. He's either going to get someone either is trying to get him, or he got an issue walking to and from. And we can't allow that to be brought into our school buildings. But we do need to have an open venue where we can address it. So I'm also asking that we have some free zones in our schools where children can walk in and say whatever they need to say and it not be held harmless. I got the gun in my bag. Let them be able to walk to a staff member and say that. We don't want it to happen, but God knows if it does. I was molested last night. It happens. They do tell staff people that. But let's have a free room where that can happen. Because we can't educate them. No, we're not the parent. But that's why we have the conversation about community schools, because there are many ills that our children are facing that need to be corrected. And I know we all agree on that, no matter what the school is. So I really think we should create some free zones, some free people, because the last thing we got to really be careful with, some of our staff run their mouth too much. And it would have to be a person that we all in every building could trust, seriously. Because I don't need to know what happened. A board member doesn't need, there needs not to be a conflict. And when it does get to you, Mr. Surf, it needs to be in a document, because we're taking some action with DIFAS and or North Police.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Next speaker, Denise Cole.
I'm coming up to speak about the co-location at George Washington Carver. First of all, I'm going to ask Arson to please find out next week who has a conflict in interest by Title 18 under the Board Ethics Code. Also, because Tave and Kim went to the charter school parent meeting, stood up in front of them before y'all discussed it tonight, and promised them their vote in favor of the contract. Before you even, the lease, the proposal, the contract, before you even had that vote. On the 22nd meeting, you had a board member, Floshan, say that her kids went to public school. Charter school. Oh, Floshan, what is that? Floshan Johnson? Floisha. Okay, whatever her name is, she said on public record that her choice was charter school for her children, that she said on that board in the interest of charter school children. Although she mentioned public, she said in the interest of charter. That's not what she was elected for, the North Public School Board, under Title 18. Second, I want to say in the public, Ms. Val and Mr. Surf said on the record that there was no policy that governed how these contracts were supposed to do. So I would like Ms. Crystal Fonseca to go to Title 18 and look at the governing laws that govern this contract. You know they exist because Charlotte gave them to me. I opened it when he first came in, all of the co-locations. Charlotte sent me a packet this thick. I have all of the co-located schools that was existence then when he took over. She gave a written opinion that I gave in on April 25th at the Reconstruction meeting when the other team was brought in. In Charlotte's opinion, Charlotte said, the only office charged with negotiating and managing leases is the chief counsel's office. It's in black, and she provided the policy to me, and she provided the legal reference in law. I would have brought it tonight, but I plan on presenting it at the open public hearing for everybody to see that they told a story on full record with Mr. Padella asking them the question. I took it to the state BOE and showed them. I was instructed to put it in writing and send it to them. I'm in the process of writing everything out, and by the end of this week, they will receive it. So Mr. Arson needs to instruct a legal opinion on the legality of people standing in public, giving their positive vote before a positive vote is getting, before you even came and discussed it in open public. There is a violation. Oh, and they also violated the conflict of interest code. So it's the board ethics and the conflict of interest, Tave and Kim. And Floisha Johnson. I ain't want to mess it up this time. So if those three should be included in the vote. I also wanted to ask that Mr. Surf and this board chairperson, you request how many contracts we have that was contracted out through early childhood to what agencies, the number of students that was contracted out. Because if leaguers had over 400 slots. Those children, 3 and 4-year-olds, could have went into George Washington Carver. So the enrollment center is effectively causing attrition to our public schools through our unenrollment of our 3 and 4-year-olds, our pre-K, saying we ain't got no space, we do got space. Get that co-located school out of our school and we can put them up in our space. Also, I would also ask the governance committee to please look at, and the legal committee to please talk to the governance committee about, we just got the ESA passed in New Jersey, and you're not in compliance when you don't include the community or the parents. Look at it. It was passed. I had the email. I'm a part of that network. Okay? And see if we're governing also, Crystal. Look at ESA. And see if you're following. Look at Title 18 in the code, because I sent it to y'all in email that they told me it wasn't a code, it wasn't a policy, it wasn't a procedure. I provided it to you. That was provided to me through legal record, through an open request through the board.
Can you just wrap it up? Your time
Yes,
is up.
I will. I'm sorry, Mr. Marquise. Thank you for indulging me tonight. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that George Washington Carver is moving in a positive direction. We have partnerships with new organizations. We're finally, the PTA, the teachers, and the parents are on one sheet of music. And growth, and our children will exceed. And I want Mr. Tave Padella, Ms. Garcia, and Ms. Fonseca to remember, what you don't want in your wards done, don't bring it to our wards and do it and vote for it. And I want that said on public record that there is a conflict in interest that have taken place in the school,
Thank you.
and Mr. Surf have caused irreparable harm to our district. When you put
Thank you,
7,000
Ms. Cole.
preschoolers in outside contracts, there's a problem with that, and they're fully funded, mind you. You want an infusion in our budget?
Thank you,
Bring
Ms.
our
Cole.
preschoolers back. Bring our 3- and 4-year-olds back. Let's tell
Ms.
the
Cole,
truth.
this-
Okay, I apologize,
Thank you.
and I'm finished. See, this ain't long enough to get
Yep.
into the financial issue.
Next speaker, Yolanda Johnson.
Good afternoon, Yolanda Johnson, 278 Goldsmith Avenue. Most of my concerns have been answered tonight, besides the inclusion of parents. I received a letter today based on me speaking out. Now, I'm going to tell you this, Mr. Chairperson. I'm going to speak out. You can have me banned. I'm going to show up anyway. Okay? Another issue that I really have, when we talk about including parents, we have to talk about responding back. Now, if you want me to be quiet during the meeting and you don't want no spaz outs or anything like that, then you're gonna respond back to me coming up here or me sending an email. Mr. Surf or Commissioner Surf sent an email saying that he wanted to meet with me and Denise, and I responded, I didn't get a response back. I sent an email to the board members, and only a few board members respond back. Mr. Pta Pto, you told me to email you 2 different things. You didn't even respond back just to say, I'm in receipt of this email. So we talking about getting back local control. We talk about including the parents. We talk about transparency committee, but the board members and the commissioner is not being transparent to the parents. So until you guys start responding back and respecting the community members and the parents, I'm gonna continue on. And guess what? I don't mind sitting in Green Street or Clinton Avenue or the Green Monster. I did jail time before, and that ain't about nothing for these kids. Thank you.
Greg sat in the jail along with the teacher.
Next speaker, Myra Milano. Myra.
Good evening,
Thank-
everyone.
Miss, thank you.
So, these were all emails that were sent out. So the first email, and I said good evening, everyone. The first email was sent out on June 13th following the last business meeting, and we discussed issues with special education. So when I come up here and speak about that, I speak about all children, but I personalize it in regards to mine. I have a godson who is special needs. Per his IEP, he was supposed to get transportation. The parent was asked to contact the transportation company to see if they received the paperwork in order for that child to be rewarded the transportation. That should not happen. Another issue that came about, the transportation just showed up. The parent had no idea that it even went through. I immediately contacted the district. I contacted some people that I knew in regards to that. And I just feel as though it sheds light to what's happening throughout the district, because I'm pretty sure that's not the only child that went through that circumstance. Parents should not have to contact any transportation companies to see if they receive paperwork. Someone in that department is not doing their job, and we're out of compliance on those IEPs. And I also asked that all staff receive special education and 504 training, as per the last email that was sent out. There was an email dated August 18th. This was from a parent in regards to our ECS Head Start program that was located at ECF's Samuel Berliner, that's Central. The parent was told by the enrollment center that their child was no longer enrolled in this school. Apparently, someone without photo ID went to the enrollment center and disenrolled the child, or there must have been some type of mix-up. No identification was taken in regards to the parent. And I also want to add, in regards to that, I work for an educational institution. I work for the Leaguers. So I wanted to comment on this. There were 2 students that were sent to us, and we were able to help one because they were preschool eligible, and we were able to work out that information. They were new to the country, and they transitioned from another location. Why are we not assisting them in the enrollment center to make sure that we help them with whatever services that they need? And that's ridiculous. We were able to assist the parent, but my biggest thing was you were just at the enrollment center, and it's not to kick anyone's back end, right? Because we've had some great relationships, right? But it's about accountability. Some social workers to be there. I don't know what capacity is there, but someone should be there that knows that system to help those children.
They don't live in North.
Okay, and the last one is, this is a student, and this one is really important. So there's been some issues with in regards to credits, and credits being transferred and kids being sent to summer schools and misinformation being communicated to parents. Apparently, this student in this last email that was dated August 29th at 10:04 a.m., no, actually, this is a whole nother issue, I'm sorry. North Prep Charter School closed down. Yeah. Those kids were told by those parents in that school to transition to NPS. I was sitting in my school, I go to Berkeley, and there was a student that had no idea that he didn't even graduate high school. He was told to go to 2 Cedar Street and request their information. When he got here, there still was some issues. No one is being held accountable for that transition process between the charter and the district. And right now, no one is going to be held accountable for that charter because that charter is closed. Those students are going to be in limbo. You have students that transition into other colleges, and they have no idea that actually they might have not even received their high school diploma.
Thank you, Ms. Medina.
Wait, one more. I'm sorry. This was the one from, there was a student from RTI. The child was enrolled in a summer school program. The information was miscommunicated to the parents. The child went to the wrong summer school. And they told her that as of next year, she would have to go into another school because RTI could not meet her standards in regards to getting her credentials. I think that is ridiculous. I feel that that is the district's fault in regards to that summer school process, and the district should be held accountable. I want to know why is that child being reprimanded by being sent to Barringer when she was already enrolled at Arts.
We'll look into it. Thank you. Next speaker. Brenda Scott. Not here. Wilhelmina Holder.
Hi, Wilhelmina Holder. I'm speaking briefly for Brenda Scott. She was here, and of course her issues are around Title I funding. The parents are in the dark, and she asked that, and I've been asking this at the last meeting, Title I, we had with Dan Denoy, is that the parents are told at each and every school what the Title I funds are, how they can be used to support their families and their children. It should not be a secret. Mr. Denoy said he didn't know if that information could be made available. That's ridiculous. That's public information. So I'm just going to talk about that for a brief moment, and please take that into consideration at the Title I conference, where every parent should be told. The other thing is, to piggyback on Myra's statement, I've dealt with that at the college fair this last Saturday. We had children from the closed charter schools who have no clue about their credits and where they stand. I sent an email, I think, to Mr. Gregory and to others and to the head of guidance to look into that situation, especially the ones from Paulo Freire and the other schools.
Ms. Holder, 1 second. Excuse me, I can't hear.
I'm sorry.
Thank
And
you.
so we're asking that they look into it and do a credit analysis as was done before of every student. Every junior and senior should have that done by the end of this month, and every freshman and sophomore by December 1. We need our children to know where they are, where they stand, etc. It's unfair to them. These low-performing charter schools who are now closed, and some of them are not, should be closed, are dumping their children. One Newark enrollment is dumping their children into West Side, Central, East Side, and other schools. And I can tell you that for a fact, and Barringer, because I saw the boxes where they're coming from into our schools. So that also accounts for the competency in the records, and talking about park data, that counts for the data. If you have a child who was kicked out of North Star or any of the other schools who are now at West Side because they were low performing or they didn't get the support they needed, and now that counts against the West Sides and the Shabazz, et cetera. So let's have the real data. I need our board to do drill down data, some real data. Don't just let the superintendent tell you that the charters are outperforming the traditional public without saying why. Now, let's also talk about how did 50% of the children not graduate this summer school? Did anybody know why? Who are the children? What schools are they from? No one asked that question. Wait a minute, 50% of the children did not graduate in August. Where are they from? What are they doing now? And also, what grades did they get? Those that passed, did they get C's, B's, A's? What's the percentage? Let's ask the real deep down data-driven questions. I need y'all to help us because we're going to local control, and we have to have not only a fiscal audit, but an instructional audit done. Who's doing what at what school? We need consistencies and uniformity. Kids are being routed out of these schools and into other schools without support. One Newark enrollment is assigning kids, and I just had this conversation tonight. The charter schools are kicking kids back, and they said, Ms. Holder, that's not our responsibility. We got them into the charter. Once they put back into traditional public, who has to be responsible? You have to have a separate enrollment process for the traditional public schools and one for the charters. We can no longer do this combined thing. It's stupid. It's harmful to the children, and it doesn't make sense. And we could prove it. Let's have some data-driven meetings with secondary parent council, with the other parent councils who can help you out and give you some real data. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring the booklet next week. I found the booklet that the high school fair that Roger Leon was the assistant superintendent. I found the, I'm a pack rat, thank God. I found the original booklet where we had a description of the high school, something they said wasn't done. We've had some great initiatives. We have to go back to what works and stop listening to this nonsense without data. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holder. Next speaker, Lyndon Brown, not appearing. Denise Crawford.
Excuse me, I signed myself in. Good evening, everyone. It's been a lot of things said, and you know, I try to be the positive person sometime in the room, but I heard a lot of things tonight, and a lot of people, y'all know y'all right, okay? They right, okay? So we have things to fix. I was in Trenton. I wasn't happy about everything, and then there was a lot of things I was happy about, but most of all, I am happy about this local control. But that means, wait a minute, y'all, come on. That means we must work together. We must work together. We may not like each other, but this is about our children. We must roll up our sleeves and we must get this work done because folks are waiting for us to fail. And if we don't work together, we're going to be back in the same compartment of trash because they trashed everything when they messed us up and decided that we could not run this district. Folks, I did look around the room at City Hall, and I saw so many people I did not even recognize. I know folks who really worked hard to bring us where we are. And we cannot get anywhere if we don't work together. I saw something on this paper. It disturbs me. I don't know who wrote 7.1, but that Q word there, I'm not even going to dignify it and say it. I'm not any of those things, but that Q word disturbs me. I don't think it needs to be there. I think it needs to be eliminated. I think that you need to watch what you write, because I think that it's embarrassing to call anybody that. I would like for that to be taken out of there. It almost really makes me want to stand up here and cry. So please watch what you say. It's just like when we come and the board attorney says stuff, y'all need to take that out. Again, I want to thank everyone and everybody in this room for all that you do for children, and I love everybody. Thank you.
All right.
So,
Any board members?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bledsoe.
Mr. Chairman, so I appreciate the comment. It's not a derogatory or defaming term. It's how people self-identify themselves. So I just would like to clarify that point. So it's not negative in any way. People choose to self-identify themselves. Like I choose to self-identify myself as black or African American. That's how I identify. And individual students do that. So I just like to make that clarifying point.
Chair.
Ms. Carter.
So on the point, I forget who brought up, I think it was Myra, about the enrollment center. So I decided to spend some time at the enrollment center myself this year. And we do need to take a closer look at what's going on at the enrollment center. The issues that I've been hearing, I wanted to see them firsthand for myself. And there were a few things that happened. We had a parent who had applied to Camden for their child. The rest of their children were in Camden. She was placed in University Heights Charter School. School was over for them at 3. Both the mother and the grandmother worked at Camden, so they weren't able to go to the 2 different locations they put the children in. And so that's the issue of being placed at a charter school. We had a parent with the grade mix-up at Chancellor, where when they went to enroll their child, they were told that there was no space for their child in the 2nd grade because they had to be retained in the 1st grade. However, their report card said 2nd grade, so someone at the enrollment center continued to put the child in the wrong spot, so the child had not gone to school for a few days. We had an issue where someone wanted their daughter to attend Westside, and they were placed at People's Prep. We had several issues. Parents who wanted their child to go to Shabazz. They had been to the enrollment several times, and they were not placed at Shabazz. They were placed elsewhere. So we really need to do away with this universal enrollment process. But we need to really take the time, and yes, many students were enrolled, but the lines are long in the morning when I drive by. It's a shame that students weren't in school. It's a shame that I hear you all tell me that we're not stopping students from going to Shabazz, but I heard with my own ears that this was happening. I have the names and the phone numbers. I did call the Deputy Soup to let him know some things that happened while I was out there. But if I just got these stories, I can imagine what else is happening. I think I brought it up to your attention, Superintendent, but we do need to take a closer look. Listening to what Myra said, I asked that the proper people look into what's going on at the enrollment center because it's not working. And why are we taking students from who want to go to traditional public schools and placing them in charter schools? If their choice is charter, then that's their choice.
Right.
But why are we placing them elsewhere and they're coming back
So-
asking to go
so-
to public schools?
So what I'd like to do is report back to the board on every single case you just mentioned. And so if you will get me personally the names, these concerns come to our attention a lot, and sometimes when they're investigated, they come out a little bit differently than as reported. So I'd like a chance to do that. So I'm very interested in the Shabazz student you mentioned, and the one I think you said People's Prep was another one. So if you get me the name and the number, the name and the information, I will report back in public exactly what the real facts are on those cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. Mr. Bledsoe.
Just really quickly, I just would like to clarify, tonight we took action on a personnel item. I just would like to clarify my no vote. The process was not clear for me, so that was the reason why I chose to go in that direction. So I just would like to put that on the record.
Any other board member?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Owens?
thank you.
Marquise, can you hear me?
Yeah, just 1 second, Ms. Gaddy.
Okay.
Ms. Owens?
So I just wanted to respond to some of the concerns and issues brought up by community members. So for Ms. Gail Muhammad, and she gave us all a draft of a resolution around Newark Public Schools implementing sick days for their per diem and teachers, employees. So if we can, not teachers, sorry, of her union, can we have that referred to legal and or personnel, wherever that has to go?
Yeah,
So
that would be an executive session and negotiation.
That's a part of the negotiation.
And that was
right
gonna be
now.
my next question. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if that would then be a part of negotiation. Okay, great.
It's currently a part of it.
Okay, great,
That's
thank
why I
you.
didn't respond.
And then, number 3, Mr. Che Coulter, if we could, after he sends the information to you, Mr. Chair, maybe we can refer that opportunity to work, for students to work with Honeywell to program instruction, so we can see how we can get that up and running if possible. And then number 5, Ms. Denise Cole, Mr. Haggerty, if we can make a note, is he still here? Oh, you're back there. I know that in program instruction, you presented to us that there's going to be deeper dive analysis around summer school and the purpose for it and who's attending. So if we could just make, sorry, I was jumping forward. Actually, that's Ms. Wilhelmina Holder. If we can make note just to include some of those ideas that Ms. Holder brought up, and I jotted them down as well. Of course, I won't forget. Sorry, but going back to Ms. Denise Cole in terms of the pre-K, just wanted to point out that in order for us to get pre-K into George Washington Carver, we have to put that into our plan, and that plan is due about mid-November. So this is something that we need to be discussing ASAP. So I wanted to also make sure that's on the agenda next month for program instruction, so we can make sure that we can actually get these classes and we don't miss that opportunity because the deadline has passed. And then also, who's number 11? Oh, Ms. Crawford. And so I just wanted to reiterate Board Member Bledsoe's comments, clarifying the way that individuals identify. So I just wanted to support the statement that he already made, and I can understand if people may or may not agree, but at the end of the day, if it's self-identification, it's a label that we have in mainstream society that we need to respect and honor that, because we do have students who identify that way, and we need to be able to support them in whatever way they need so that they can have educational success. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So now,
Marquise.
Ms. Gaddy. Ms. Gaddy.
Yes. I just want to make a statement. I do want to thank those individuals who came and spoke. But I also want to make a statement that just because things are said, they're not factual. And I know Ms. Cole made a statement that was incorrect. Myself, Tate, and Darche attended that meeting. And I got up and said, we're here to listen. We can't discuss anything about the lease. And I know people like to say sound bites that sound good, but we need to be careful about those statements. And as board members, those board members that was there, Dasha, you was there as well, we need to speak up when stuff like that is said to support one another. And then in terms of, I was just going to close out with some, to agree with what Leah said in terms of supporting the 5-year plan that Mr. Thomas want to put together and making sure that the financial resources will also be allocated when we're talking in terms of what it's going to take in terms of new teachers and the whole like. So I just think that board members need to, again, do their due diligence, step up to the plate, because this is something, if we say we want to support the principal in that school, then we need to be willing to do the work and not only hold ourselves accountable, but the district accountable. But thank you.
All right, so I just, as we close, Ms. Johnson, go ahead.
So, first, I just wanted to, hear me now? It was on. I guess the thing wasn't all the way in. But Donna Jackson left, but I just wanted to piggyback off of what she suggested with having a safe space throughout the schools. I think that was a good suggestion, and it's something that I would like to be a part of, to have that happen inside of our schools. Also, I just wanted to say something was going on with my email this week, but I had sent out an email to all the board members as well as Valerie with some issues and concerns that I had with the lease. So I just told her what I wanted to have done for my own clarification, the questions that I had as far as the lease, so I can move forward in, with this whole lease discussion. And also, I just wanted to address Ms. Cole by saying that last board meeting that I said that I was only on this board for charter schools, which is not true at all. I never said that. It was my choice for my kids to go to the school that they attend, and it was my right as a parent. But me sitting on this board, I make the sound decisions that I think that is quality for kids in the NPS school system, whether they're charter or whether they're traditional or whether they're magnet. My views and my opinions are for the kids in the city of Newark. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
All right. So I just want to address a few things that was said. One thing is, I know someone came up here and talked about a letter that they received. So I just wanted to say, as the chair of this board, it's my job to make sure that our board meetings are smooth, that I'm able to conduct board business with no interruption during the board meeting. So as the board president, I knew that it was going to create controversy. I knew some people was going to be upset that it happened, but I did it because at the end of the day, I will not be up here begging grown folks to act grown and not as children, right? So we have to respect each other. Just like I respect you, and with your comments, you have to respect me when I speak. I'm not trying to go back and forth, Ms. Johnson. So what I'm saying is I'm asking for respect. I'm not going to be sitting up here asking every board meeting for a certain adult to stop and respect this board. Ms. Johnson, I'm not going to continue to ask adults for respect when any of the board members are speaking. Okay, I'm going to move on. The letter said what it said, all right? And I have the right as the board president to move and do what I said in the letter, bottom line. So also, Ms. Holder, I do have a concern about what Ms. Holder said about the credits of the charter schools. If we can get a response on when I know I see Ed here, if we can have a response when the children are being coming into NPS, are we able to track their credits, or what's the issue, what's going on between them leaving the charter school and coming into the district? So I would ask if we get some clarity on that. Also, I also want more update and more a deep dive in 50% of our seniors failing summer school. That is troubling, and I think we need to talk about that more. And I want to also support my board colleagues and say that I too support the leadership at George Washington Carver, and I believe that that principal need to be given the opportunity to grow his institution, need to be giving the full support of us as board members in this district. I know that this principal come from good stock. I know that he's been part of transforming the school before, and I totally believe in his leadership, and I believe that any person should be given the opportunity to grow their program so they can show proven results so that their children can be successful. I wanted to say that, and I wanted to say that, and I think the board, I
I have a couple of quick responses. I know we're very near the end of the line. First of all, just a couple of points of clarification. The state sends approximately $94 million to the district for the pre-K programs, and for many, many, many years, that has been delivered through two different modalities, if you will. One, through district programs that are resident in our schools, as well as through early childhood centers, which are located in each ward. But a little bit more than half of the children are served through organizations like the Leaguers and others. So I think there was a comment that perhaps might be clarified by that. So let me just end with this: is that I'm a little troubled by some things. So I'm just gonna, you can take it or leave it, but I'm just gonna tell you this. I would be very, very happy if we celebrated the successes where we find them, and we all aspired to try to achieve those successes. I think that when a school succeeds, whether it's a traditional school or a magnet school or anything else, I think it's something to celebrate. But at the same time, I want to share the support for the principal of Carver and for the community of Carver. They've been through a lot. They're making real progress. I don't think that this is a zero-sum world where you have to choose A and take away from B, or choose B and take away from A. I think that it's very easy to fall into a trap. You fall into a trap around that. What I think we all ought to do, and I can't remember who said it, but it was a very wise comment, is we ought to learn from each other, we ought to support each other, we ought to enable the growth of Carver. I think we can show you a way that that's happening. I think the suggestion that came, I believe it was from Ms. Owens, memory may serve, that we need to see with great particularity what kind of work will be done in the Carver building, not in a level of abstractions, not in terms of dollars, but what kind of work will be done, what difference that would make. I think that would be very additive to the conversation, and so we will undertake to do that. I will also say, at risk of generating a response, that I'm going to ask our General Counsel's office to come back to respond in writing to the suggestion that there is a document, the references to Section 18A, that makes the consideration of this matter a violation of law. I have personally reviewed the statute, and I can assure you it says literally the opposite of that. So we will share that. We will share that with the board. And lastly, I will say that I am now speaking.
Ms. Cole. Ms. Cole.
I am now speaking, and I will also tell you that I extended an
Ms. Cole, please. Let him speak. Let him speak. Let him speak.
Yeah.
Ms. Cole.
Superintendent speaking.
He has to be corrected when it's a lie.
Ms.
He's
Cole.
lying right
Ms.
now.
Cole, please let him speak. You have the floor.
That's not what I said. If he gonna quote
You
what
have
I
the
said,
floor.
quote what I said.
You have the floor, Ms.
So
Cole.
maybe we could agree on this. Why don't we get a lawyer to submit an opinion in response to your comments, whatever it may have been? Okay. Well, actually, it's a question of law, but yes, we'll do that. So, and lastly, I would again renew my invitation. Ms. John, no. I did respond,
Ms.
and I want the
Johnson.
record to be clear on that. You suggest, I did respond. I invited you and Ms. Gold to come meet with me, and I extend that invitation. What I don't do is say I'll only meet with you on certain terms. I don't work that way. If you want to come, that's fine. It's my meeting. If you want to come to my meeting, the door is open. Thank you very much. That's your call. That's
Thank
totally
you.
fine.
Thank you. So next on the agenda, old and new business. Any old and new business? Any old and new business? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I can't hear you much.
Thank you.
Who made the motion? Who made the motion? Garcia, all in favor?
I gotta go.
Thanks.
Let's see a second.